And we're on. Hello, John.
Woo, first podcast. My first podcast.
Yeah, so this is my friend John Caulfield. We used to be flatmates in Glasgow. And this is just our catch up
Is
because we've
so
not
this
talked for months.
no. If this is a podcast about AI technologies and stuff, and I am not probably one of your it's a similar kind of clientele as your previous guest, so it probably won't be as technical and it'll be a bit less formal.
Yeah, don't worry. I mean, just pretend no one's listening, which is kind of true because I
Yeah.
don't have any viewers anyway.
It's not like you have a Joe Rogan audience yet, is it?
No, 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 not yet. Um,
um, what's good? How are you keeping? I haven't seen you in a few
I'm
months. You're in Cardiff.
I'm very good. Yeah, I'm in Cardiff now. So I've been in Cardiff for like 2 months and
Mm.
I've been just kind of trying different things. I've got so I've got about 160 books in my living room downstairs.
Fuck me,
Use
pink.
Yeah, exactly. I've got 160 books that I got from like Facebook Marketplace that I got for free, and charity shops and that kind of stuff. Gumtree, everywhere basically books that I got for free. Or
Here's a difference between me and you because you know the willpower book that you got me. I still
yeah.
haven't even fucking finished it.
Have you started
I did. I
it?
read three-quarters of the book in one day or 1.5 days, and then I just
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, that
a
sounds
lack
like
a
you.
lack of conscientiousness. That does sound like this. Yeah, she's 160 books. So what have you just literally been reading like a monk for the last two
No,
months?
no. So that's the thing. So I've got those books and I'm gonna sell them on Amazon. So that's what I'm gonna do. So you ask how I'm gonna pay my bills. That's how I'm gonna pay my bills. I'm going around the
Oh, so
city
is that your version of what was it you were wanting? You're wanting to flip things. You're wanting
flipping.
to
Yeah,
you were
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
were
I,
sitting inside and
I
you were
flipped
looking you
some
were looking
clothes
at
as
the
well. So I was also walking around like charity shops, buying clothes, selling them on eBay. But because my account is new, I have a limit of 10 listings. So, I basically ran into a limit of 10 listings. I was like, what I'm gonna do next? Uh,
you're buying clothes from a charity shop and selling them for a profit.
yeah, pretty much.
I suppose you in that case you are the charity as much as they are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm that's the good thing about it. The money goes to charity as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we'll see. So far, I've only lost money on it. Uh, but
It
we'll
sounds like a
see how it
great
goes.
business idea. And you're not going, are you going back? You're not going back to software engineering or anything like that at all?
Maybe later. Maybe later. Because
What's
I
later
was
like?
well, because I was like, it's just like I was like, what's the quickest way to make money? Because I don't have a source of income. You remember that. So I was like,
Mhm.
what's the quickest way? And I thought, I would try this.
Well,
Also,
if whatever floats your boat, it's definitely definitely a bit of left field. Jeez, if I like you, but do you not like? It's funny you say that, right? Because like I've been unemployed obviously since I left Glasgow as well, and
mhm,
like I've really hated not working. I've really really hated not working and not because working gives me a sense of purpose and a sense of
mhm.
conviction in the morning to wake up and I
You
haven't been
sound
able
like
to.
me right now.
But it's true. I haven't been able to find an alternative, and I was talking to one of my
Yeah.
friends about it. So it was actually like it was affecting my mental health. And like I became quite depressed and very irritable and like chewing my nails and smoking cigarettes and binge eating chocolate and everything else. And it was like, "So it's coming into the winter now. What the fuck am I going to do?" And there was like obviously in the midst of a pandemic with there's so much competition for jobs. There's
Mhm.
some of the jobs I was doing on like LinkedIn and stuff. There might be like 1,000 applicants or whatever, 800 applicants, and I was like, "Fuck this! How am I going to compete with that?" But then I was talking to one of my mates on what day is today? Today's Thursday. I got offered a job Tuesday. So Monday. Was it Monday? Tuesday. Monday. Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember. The days are all merging into one. Um And I was chatting to him on Monday for like 2 hours, and we were talking. He's like, so he would be from, say, for instance, to go back to the Myers-Briggs, he would be a ISTJ,
Mm-hmm.
and he would be, and on the 5-factor model, he would be, I think he scored in the top 5% in terms of top 5 percentile in conscientiousness.
Mm.
So I was trying to get some practical advice for him in order to how to be more conscientious, because I was explaining to him how I mightn't apply for jobs for 2 weeks, but then the day before we were chatting, I applied for over 220 jobs. So he was like, why
Wow.
can't you just like have a routine and just do a little bit each day and,
Yeah.
be a creature of habits? And I was like, buddy, I'm really struggling with being conscientious. Like, I was like, and then like, I've been Googling genuinely, like, I ramble quite a lot. So, but you put me onto Jordan Peterson,
Mm-hmm.
and like, Max, genuinely, I have, obviously, I don't necessarily agree nor disagree with everything he says, but I think he's an incredible antidote to what a lot of the indoctrination that I would have been exposed to through the
Mm-hmm.
medium of university and third level education. Particularly, I was in the humanities, so I studied human resource management in a business school in Ireland. And he talks about how since life has always been hard and it's always been shit. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
you look at the history, life has always been tough. Only in the last 60 years, whatever, 50, 60 years, have we become obsessed with rights and privileges as opposed to struggle and
Yes.
responsibility. And, I have kind of, I suppose, I have allowed myself over the course of, well, I'm 27 now, over the last number of years, to leave jobs when it got difficult, or to move to a different city, or to drop out of
Mm-hmm.
college and stuff, because it got difficult due to a lack of kind of perseverance and conscientiousness, but not to absolve myself of responsibility, but not in any way, shape, or form, because I'm trying. That's the one thing I'm trying to take now, is actual responsibility. But I kind of, I suppose, everything that with the kind of everyone says to you, oh, it's fine. It said, look, things are hard, and it's okay that you give up on that and stuff. But you know
Yeah.
what? Maybe it's not. Like, it's important to persevere and to have that conscientiousness in order to have to like to have to become goal orientated and to have those goals to get you through the harder, darker times and stuff. So going back to Jordan Peterson, he's been a breath of fresh air when he's talked about a lot of things, but particularly that's the one that's really spoken to me about the the importance of conscientiousness. So he said the 4 factors in terms of traditional career success. So there's very few. The number one is general IQ, general intelligence. So I've done my IQ before. I think it's somewhere around 135. So I know it's well
Really?
above average.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
quite,
it's about 100.
yeah, quite in the gifted range.
That was on a proper test before. I paid like a tenner. I was like 19 at the time, I think.
Mm.
And I know that general intelligence doesn't tend to fluctuate. It doesn't vary. There's not much variability in it as you get
Yeah.
older. The second most important one, do you know what it is? You know what it is, don't you?
I can guess conscientiousness.
It is. It's conscientiousness.
Yeah.
That's the second largest predictor of career success. Then below that, but much below that, is extroversion, and below
Mm.
that again is good looks and attractiveness. So I was like, right, if I have intelligence and I'm an extrovert and I don't look like a complete foot, then then what I need to do is just become conscientious in order to get my shit together, get my life together, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's really spoken to me. And he was talking about facts. One of the big things that I wasn't aware of is how I was also indoctrinated by social constructivism. But
Mm-hmm.
by the way, if there is anyone listening to this, these are the types of conversations that me and Max had on quite a regular basis. Um, and it was like the fact that how they did a study. Like, obviously he's a clinical psychologist, he's understood the data, he's not just talking on a whim, he has data to back up and
Mm-hmm.
substantiate his arguments. And he used an example of, in the Nordic countries and in the Scandinavian countries, there was a 15-year cross-sectional intersectional study, um, where obviously they're the most egalitarian society, so that, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's the most freedom of access for, say, women into the STEM areas of work, or men into, say, the humanities or
Mm-hmm.
nursing or teaching. Basically the opposite stereotypes of the other sex. And what they expected, the social constructivists expected, that they would become more homogenous and that the careers would merge together and there wouldn't be much of a
Yeah.
difference. Whereas in fact, when men and women were given the opportunity, the most egalitarian opportunity to be different, they became even more different, which was absolutely like it was quite groundbreaking. But it's not something that's been acknowledged in any kind of academic circles, only on the fringes, like only the ones that are marginalized. So yeah,
Mm,
it's I thought it was quite fascinating, and he's like, it goes to show, I suppose, how much like there are some things I don't like. I'm not, as I said to you before, I'm not particularly conservative. I'm not necessarily religious.
mm-hmm.
You can see how he can be very, very, very influential in a very, very positive way to a lot of people, and not just men, to women also. But I can see how he can be very influential, and I can even see some. I can remember some of your mannerisms and some of your kind of things you used to
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, yeah, he definitely heard that from Jordan Peterson the first time. Well, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
I got a lot of
I'm
stuff
very
that I
glad
know
you.
from him.
I'm very glad you showed me you kind of, because you said to me that you believe he's going to, in the next whatever 20 years, he will eventually be heralded as one of the greatest academics and not revolutionary thinker, but um, unconventional thinkers of
Yeah,
his time. That he'll be heralded. So I'm glad that you put me onto him.
yeah, I'm I'm glad too.
Yeah.
So did you get a job in Dublin?
Yes, so I did get a job, going back to my original point. So I got a job the day after I was talking to my friend Paddy. I got a job. So I did an interview last Tuesday. No, last 2 weeks ago. But the job that I interviewed for, I didn't like it at all. It was
No.
basically as just a recruiter, someone who just basically brings in candidates, fills them in. Just literally, it's kind of a box ticking exercise, and it's for people who have a strong attention to detail.
Mm.
People who are really attentive and kind of good with admin. Not me either. Um, and so it wasn't my skill set. And so towards the end of the interview, I was at the managing director. It's a small company; they're only about a year and a half old. And I said to the managing director, I said, so is this a 360 role? 360 in recruitment means basically you're both doing the
Yeah.
sales, the business development side of it, as well as the servicing, the recruitment side. And
Mm.
he said, not really. I said, I suppose we'd expect everyone to sell. And I was like, yeah, I don't think this is really for me, is it? And he said, no, I don't think so. But to be honest with you, I said, there's something I really like about you. I said, I don't know. There's just something I really like. I said, the way you present yourself is very well. And I said, geez, that's great. I said, any bit
Mm.
of critical feedback or advice? And they said, no, anything negative. And I said to the girl, Terry, who I don't know, I said, Terry, do you have anything negative to say? And they're like, no. I said, you presented yourself really well. I said, Jesus, lads, come on, my shit doesn't stink. Like, it's not a corporate environment. So I was already swearing. I managed to
Mhm.
develop a lot of engage with them. Which is probably the reason that they hired me, I'd say. And so he said, right, just leave it with me. That's grand. And so he said, that's fine. He said, leave it with me. So I would go outside, and I'm out there about to smoke a fag and about to hop on the bus. And I see the managing director runs out after me, and he calls me. He said, John, come back in, come back in. So he called me back in. And he said, I want you to meet another fella here. This is Eugene. He's from Northern Ireland. He's from Belfast, actually, and he's the head of sales and marketing. And I was like,
Mm.
all right, we're going to do a second interview now here. So I said, that's grand. So I did a second interview with them. And he asked me about my sales, the job that I'd done in Glasgow. And he asked me about the kind of industries that I was working in and whatnot. So this is a construction company.
Mm.
We're trying to move into other areas as well, because I know jack shit about construction, and I know that they're not going to watch this, so I don't care about them not finding out. They're not going to find out. So yeah, that was grand. So they rang me later that day. Then they said, look, will you? She rang me, the girl Terry, and she said, John, we actually really liked you. We had about 150 applications. We had about 8 people in, but none of them. There was something that really just struck us about you and your potential, and blah blah blah. And I said, that's grand. So I said, they asked, would I? They wanted me to create a cold desk. So it's basically to create finding new business in a new market. So like completely by myself. So it's not. There's no pre-database. There's no
Mm.
CRM. It's already cultivated and established
That's pretty
contact or
great.
rapport.
That's the job I was in at coaching, the sales job I got. You know, we start with nothing and you
That
have
way
to
it was
build.
completely cold.
Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
have
So
to find the contacts and,
yeah,
then, call them and do everything pretty much
yeah.
like. just starting from scratch, starting from nothing.
It's challenging.
Yeah,
Thankfully,
exactly.
no, I won't have to. I won't be talking to the big corporate managers that you were talking to, like vice presidents of fucking of IT, and in those
Hmm.
vertically integrated companies, finding big managers. It'll be all small scale. But anyway, long story short, because I don't usually make long stories short. I usually make short stories long. Um, they offered me the job when after I sent them a business plan for how I'd start business, and what I can kind of move into my own sectors then. So I'm trying to focus. I have to. It's going to be focusing on kind of market breadth at first, and then try to
Hmm.
focus on market depth. So yeah, I'm starting Monday. I'm moving up on Sunday. I have a room. I got a room within an hour and a half. I
Wow.
did a virtual viewing last night. Two guys up in Dublin. They seem really sound as well. So yeah, no, looking. Actually, I was really nervous about it yesterday. I was really nervous because I've been so lazy. I've been so fucking lazy the last 2 months. I was like kind of, almost excluded from society, so to speak, in my own head. And I was like, fuck that. No, I need to get my shit together. So, yeah, look, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm more excited now today than I was yesterday. So my biggest key learning, and the biggest thing I'm going to try to do is how to be conscientious industriousness, because like I've made so many commitments both to others and to myself over recent times,
Hmm.
and I haven't held myself to be accountable, um, and I haven't been responsible enough. So, well, obviously I have other skill sets, but these are my negative qualities that I'm going to try
Yeah,
work on. So
and the best thing is
that's
once you go through that, like you go through those commitments and actually follow through, there's like, you get like this kick of dopamine, that you feel
yeah.
that you've succeeded, and then it propels you to do more of that.
Yeah, yeah. Is that like that and that's what I've never actually. I suppose I've never experienced that gratitude, not gratitude, that gratification, I suppose,
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
of well, actually I have. Sorry, that's not true. I have, but not in a job. I have done in academic times, like working really
Hmm.
hard and getting like 1-1s and stuff like that in
Yeah.
college.
Do you feel satisfied when like you've cleaned your room, and do you like do you ever get that feeling? Oh my God, I've cleaned my room. No?
No, I'm still a messy bastard. I haven't, I still, I Max, this is no joke, right? I moved home on the 31st of July. I still have some of my clothes sitting in a bag that haven't been opened since the 31st of July. That's no lie. That's not a lie.
Oh, that's not so
So
bad.
yeah, fuck that. It's 2.5 months.
Well, if you didn't need them,
It,
you know, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
that's true. That's
Like
true.
I
Yeah.
tend to unpack. I'm on the opposite side. Like, I tend to do things that I don't even have to do, and
Yeah.
I end up wasting a lot of time on doing things that I don't have to do. And like sometimes, I've got like a 16-hour day in which like 8 hours are completely wasted doing stuff that doesn't need to, like, like I wash dishes that don't really need to be washed. Like I wash my flatmate's dishes, like uh,
Mm,
it- like I'm I'm just doing things I don't need to do just because I'm
is
so
that is
OCD
that
about it.
are you doing that as like a de-stressor, like to kind of
No,
de-stress
no,
you or
no. I
declutter your mind?
So I think it's just a dopamine kick. Like you see
Okay,
something, you see I see something that needs to be done. I do it, and then I feel better.
okay, all right. Any advice as to, because you're usually quite insightful when it comes to things like this, and because I've found, even from we only lived together for 3 months, but I found that you had really good kind of influence over your own. You had a lot of self control. I
Hmm.
know you're kind of saying there you don't, but you have a lot of self control in terms of you're very open. Like you're extremely open to new experience, but you're extremely open to self criticism, so that
Yeah,
you're self
I
aware
try to be. Yeah.
about changing different habits of behavior. So
Hmm.
if I were to ask you a piece of advice as to how I would incorporate that kind of positive mechanism of um, being diligent, being conscientious, achieving my tasks, being goal oriented, basically being conscientious, for want of a better term. Any particular advice?
Yeah, I have two. So one of them, clear goals, like, and goals that actually matter to you, like goals that you
Okay.
actually want to do. because it's easy to convince yourself that you want something when you actually don't. Like, so maybe you think you want a nicer car, but you actually want to like flex that car and like show it to your friends and like get that approval
Yeah,
from your
yeah.
friends. And like it's very difficult to like actually go inside and realize what you actually want. So that would
Mm,
be one thing. Like think about what you want and like keep
yeah,
your goals around what you want. And like, you can make this like about your family as well. Like I've been thinking a lot about my dad and like I've been thinking about like I want to make more money because eventually I want to like take my dad on a trip somewhere, or
yeah,
even get to the point where he doesn't have to work, where I can just pay all his bills.
yeah,
So like that's something. And now that in this way I have a motivation for making more money, because it's something that really matters to me. So I would that's one thing that I would recommend, like goals that actually matter to you personally
yeah.
on an emotional level.
I'm trying to
Um,
figure that out. That's good. It is, and I want to try use that. That acronym. The what's that acronym? That goal setting acronym you're supposed to use.
Smart.
SMART. Yeah,
Yeah.
specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna. I've never. I want to try incorporate that. So what
Well,
you're
but if that's too complicated, because like if you have trouble sticking to things, like maybe
yes,
that's too complicated.
everything,
Because like,
not things, everything. I have trouble sticking to anything
okay, so listen, so like, don't even think about goals that that
specifically.
that what's the word that oh fuck, I can't express myself. This is so
That's
annoying.
okay.
But anyway, like don't even think about goals that match those five criteria. Just
Okay.
those five, specific, measurable.
Yeah.
Maybe just think about anything, like because if you have trouble sticking to things that are, um, like the thing is like, do you have enough follow through to come up with a goal that matches those five criteria? If you don't,
Fun.
then just come
Yeah.
up with any goal, like any goal that actually matters to you. Like,
That's true because if I pick something that's really like that satisfies all those criteria, then I mightn't actually follow through with it. I might spend more time picking a goal rather than actually following through with it. Whereas if
yeah,
I,
exactly. What I'm saying is like if you have to pick something that matches those five criteria, then you might not do it at all because you have to actually sit down and do it, and then you need a goal to set a goal. You know what I mean? Like you have to get
yeah, yeah,
disciplined enough to
yeah,
set a goal. Like maybe instead of that, just pick any goal. Like next time
yeah,
something comes to your mind, like a wild fantasy, like that's one thing that we've kind of moved away from too much, like fantasies. Like you have
yeah,
fantasies when you're like 12. Like
yeah.
like I want to go and fucking live in Jamaica for a year. And then, as we get older, we
We're conditioned out of it.
yeah, we just don't think like we don't really think about them anymore. So maybe what we need to do is like pay attention to our fantasies more. Like next time you
That's
get like a,
true.
like a random fantasy, think what you can do. Like maybe like try to, maybe act on that, maybe like come up with a plan, like what would I have to do for that fantasy to come true?
Yeah, because I suppose those fantasies are just like they're manifestations of our subconscious, really, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, and like the fact that we're so caught up in like whatever the day to day, so to speak, that we might neglect those kind of those we'll have strong inhibitions towards those fantasies. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So like that's quite true. That's quite interesting about what I might do then is because one of the things that's I have an idea in my head right now. It's just popped into my head.
Mm-hmm.
So they say that one of the best times for coming up with ideas or fantasies or whichever whatever way you want to frame it is just going for a walk. No
Mm-hmm.
music, no anything, just go for a walk. So my walk to work, I've timed it. So I asked my new housemate yesterday on video call, and he said it's about 15 20 minute walk.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be walking to and from work each day. So I'm going to try to let my mind be free for fantasies rather than trying to focus on what I have to do that day or what I'm going to have for lunch or who I'm chatting to on Tinder or my friends. I'm going to try to allow myself just that freedom to let the mind be free, so to speak, and let those natural thoughts come up to the surface. I think it'd be a good time. It'd be a good time for it,
Yeah,
and then and then
think
and
that's a
then to
good
take
thing to
note of
try.
them and to actually follow through with them.
I think it's a good thing to try. Although what I found is sometimes if you like, if you're like, I'm gonna spend 20 minutes just letting my thoughts go and like just letting fantasies come to me, what happens is you kind of get stuck in that trying to force those fantasies to come to the surface.
Yeah, I get that. It's not as natural.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think you're, because like you say you're disorganized, or you say you
No, I am disorganized.
yeah, yeah, like you don't have discipline. That's what you're saying. So,
No, yeah, I don't
but
have discipline.
what I would say, like, actually that's good for your fantasies to come to the surface. Like that's good for your um
Okay.
creativity to come to the surface. So,
Yeah.
maybe you already have those fantasies. Maybe you have everything you need. You just need to pick something and now implement it.
That's true. I'm kind of going off branch. You clicked with something that you talked to me about
Mm,
there, because one that I might go off topic now, but I'm actually not, because we haven't chatted
okay.
for a while. But you said to me something that I really wanted to implement, but obviously I didn't follow through on it, and it's literally just come back to me. You said if you want to make these changes, because I talked to you a lot about how to become more self-aware, how to become more industrious and all this, how to get more in touch with my actual goals and ambitions and to align those to my actual behaviors and so on and so forth. And you said to me, make sure whatever you do, you're doing one thing at a time.
Hmm.
So it's just one thing. So it's 1 month of doing one new thing. Do it all the time for a month or every day or however often it's meant to be done, to do that. And then that's how you will create those habits.
Hmm.
Um, and those new patterns of kind of behavior. Unfortunately, I haven't. I've tried new things for about 10 minutes on many occasions, and but my mind has. I've still allowed my mind to be as scattered as ever. I know it's just part of my natural personality that I will be organized, but at the same time, I know that I'm fully aware more now than I've ever been before. That's something I really need to work on, for the betterment of my future. And just not even for the betterment of my future though, but just to get more satisfaction out of things, like just to get more kind of, as you said, kind of it brings a lot of value to your life to be kind of diligent with those kind of
Hmm.
tasks, and to not be like, I'm so lenient on myself, so lenient. I'm not I'm only harsh on myself in words. I'm not harsh on myself in terms of actions. um and it's my responsibility to change that, and I don't do too well with responsibility by and large. So um yeah, it's definitely, it's going to be a big challenge, but I think that it's my it's my it's the most important thing for me to now is to become more conscientious. And like, obviously under conscientious there's all those other associations, such as being more disciplined, being more
Hmm.
responsible, being more, follow through with my goal, being more goal orientated and whatnot, because I'm so scattered otherwise. But yeah, that's for, if there is anyone listening there. I kind of sometimes use Max as my pseudo therapist, because he has he has very strong characteristics that I'm very envious of.
Well, I'm
But,
glad to hear that. I'm glad I can help. But
Jan, if you're ever really stuck for money, and if I'm ever really rich, if that situation ever transpires, I'll just pay you to give me daily advice. You can give me like a daily tutorial on
that'd
life.
be great. Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe
That's true.
I, you know, I, I would like. I sometimes think I should become a therapist, but I'm just too disagreeable. Like I'm not a very
Yeah, that
people-oriented
you
person.
don't agree, you don't agree for the sake of social harmony. That's not
No.
part of your agenda. That's not part of
Yeah,
your
that's not
your
what I
your
do.
motivations when your motivations is not to get the other person to like you.
No.
No, no, yeah, you'd probably. I, I, I think though, if you were, let's just be just consider the possibility for a situation. If you were a therapist, I think you're actually very empathetic. You are very, very empathetic, and you're very good at putting yourself in the other person's shoes. But it's your response, it's your kind of, it's your brute honesty, or
Mm,
your kind of your your loyalty to truth as opposed to comfort would
mm-hmm.
kind of would kind of, I would say, distort your
Yeah.
reactions towards the patient, and the patient would be like, here, fuck man, I just told you that I'm really sad, you're telling me all the things that I'm doing wrong in my life.
Yeah, I've
um,
definitely scared some people away in the past. And
so
like, um, yeah, like I also get impatient, like, because in my mind, I always want to move to the solution. But, like for me, like sometimes, I have a problem and like I come up with a solution, then I'm ready to implement it like one day. But for some
yeah,
people, it takes them like months to process that. And,
yeah.
you can just imagine me being in a session with someone, whereas like the eighth session and they're not emotionally ready, but I'm like, oh, come on, man, just do it.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Well, look, maybe that's the we'll just cross off therapist off the list. So, but I think I think though, with the right, maybe if you could create a therapy business just for like a certain type of person, for like
Hmm.
someone who's really low on conscientiousness, or someone who people who just want to really get in touch with, who really want to be honest with themselves, completely honest,
Hmm.
because I always thought I was honest. I think I'm honest in terms of sometimes about, like, I'm honest in some ways, but I think you're, oh shit, sorry. By the way, I just got a notification about the Ireland match. It's like 0-0. There's a big Ireland soccer match on it at the moment, but it's like it's halftime. It's 0-0, so I just got a notification. I think you're more honest than I am. I think you're very honest with yourself first and foremost. So you're the kind of person where, if, for instance, if I was to talk to you in a year, say for instance we hadn't talked like this for 3 months,
Hmm.
and like, I think you'd be quite honest with, because you're so honest with yourself. I think it I found that you're very honest almost with me as well. And your honesty is almost transparency about like what you're doing right or what you're doing wrong, or do you know what I mean? So, if put you this way, right? Let me give you an example. If 99.99% of my friends told me that they gave up a software engineering job and started flipping shit on the internet, I'd be like, man, you all right? Like, are you sure you know what the fuck is going on? You got a bit gaga or a bit lulu in your head. Whereas with you, I know that that's not true, because you've kind of given so much thought and depth and
Hmm.
kind of analysis to this. So, do you know what I mean? So I think that'll always stand to you, because you try to be as truthful to yourself as more than anyone else. Because do you know what I mean? You're very, like, one of our biggest arguments was kind of, well, not well, yeah, kind of an argument was
Yeah, we
um
can call it that.
your individualistic philosophies and my
Hmm.
collectivist philosophies. And I think that I gave you insight into, when we were talking, into the benefits of collectivism, not the benefits necessarily, but the purported benefits of collectivism,
Hmm.
and compared to, some would say, the selfish, or the kind of the lack of egalitarianism and individualism. Whereas a lot of the things that you told me about individualism, I wasn't quite ready to pick up on, and I have been only I've been thinking about it a lot in the last little while. And like, I was a full blown fucking commie there for about 4 years when I was younger. Like you said, you were from about 15 to like
Yeah.
18 or 19, but I one of the big things, like you quoted this to me as well, the same as I've heard Jordan Peterson say on an umpteen occasions. He said, "I'm all for equality of opportunity, but absolutely 110% I am not for equality of outcome." And
Mm.
I think that you've given me a lot of insight. I suppose a lot of, most people who would say that to me, I'd be like, "Ah, you're talking bollocks, you're talking shite." But I think there's more. There's obviously there's a lot of merit to it, but I think it's something that I'll probably sway more to. So I think I'll always be I would always hope that I'm somewhat liberal and somewhat progressive, even though
Hmm.
you're quite liberal as well.
Oh, on
But
some things, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
about some things.
the whole label, like liberal, I try to be
Yeah,
as liberal as possible. Like, I'm for as much freedom as possible in the sense
liberal has
that,
liberal at the moment.
yeah,
What in today's world, especially in America, what's known as a liberal is not the true definition of a
yeah,
liberal.
exactly.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Um, can I go back to something? I'm actually curious. So, like the last 2 months, you've been what? No, three. When did you move to? What date did you move to Cardiff?
At the beginning of September, so really just
Okay.
1 month I've been in
Oh, right, okay.
Cardiff.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how have you gone to the castle? No,
Yeah, yeah, I've been there
have you?
once, but
Did you?
most of it is closed off because I don't know. I think it's because of COVID.
Yeah,
So like
isn't
the
it shit? It's shit the fact that the times you're going to new cities, you can't really
yeah.
explore them.
Yeah, and
Do you know what I
also,
mean?
I thought it was gonna get better. Like I really thought, because it was getting better in the summer, and I thought it was just gonna get better for good. I thought we were done with
Well, do you want to talk about COVID? Do you want to talk about COVID? Because I have some
it.
interesting opinions.
Yeah, let's
Um,
talk about COVID.
so I'm as both of us are quite unconventional thinkers on some things, and like we don't like to follow the typical narrative. And
Hmm.
I have a big problem with people who label you if you go against the general consensus or the general narrative of the liberal agenda that's going around at the moment, that you're a tinfoil hat conspiracy man. I have huge umbrage to that. Um, and the cases have been dramatically on the rise, yes,
Yeah.
but they've tried to. One of the big, I think, what I'm finding manifesting now. Obviously, this is only in the online world because it's all playing out in the online world. It's not playing. People are reacting to each other in the online world the way they wouldn't in real life. But the way it's playing out, because there was so much of a fear at the time when it first came out, they thought, they didn't know about the mortality rate, 1 in 10
Hmm.
people could die, or how severe this is going to be, absolutely cataclysmic and catastrophic. So there was a huge drumming up of fear and hysteria. And now the fact that people have seen how the mortality rate has dropped so much, that even though cases are on the rise and it is coming into winter, two things I think are happening. One, they're trying to replicate that. The mass media are trying to replicate that hysteria that
Hmm.
was going around come February, March time, particularly March, April, May. That stay in your houses, the virus is coming for you. It's in your ears, it's in your nose, it's in your hair. It's fucking
Yeah.
everywhere. And then everyone, there was like, we're in this together, and that messaging kind of worked quite well at the time. Oh, we're all
Hmm.
in this together.
Yeah, for a while,
Whereas
for a few
since
weeks.
then, yeah,
And
for a
then it
few
kind of
weeks,
got fucked up after a while
it's
because everyone
it's
got
become
tired.
it's everyone got fed up, and it's become to a point where it's become so divisive. Even the fact, like, even just the whole, who would have fucking thought that 2020, one of the most divisive political issues of our time, was wearing a fucking mask? Do you know what I mean? I know nobody knew about a global pandemic was coming,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
and the way people have become ideologues. Like, it's like, even if you use America as an example, if you wear a mask, you're a Democrat. If you don't wear a
Hmm.
mask, you're a Republican. And that's literally, it's almost like an instant identifiable tool almost. And that's how it's trying to be orchestrated. But I don't know. I suppose in terms of the whole thing with COVID, like, me personally, this is my personal belief. Everyone else is welcome to disagree with it. Absolutely. I believe that people who are non-vulnerable should be allowed to live their lives in their entirety. I do.
Yeah.
Whether that's in the case of herd immunity or what, I don't know. That's been my case. That's been my belief for a while. If I got COVID, I wouldn't be concerned personally about myself. I would be a little bit more worried about maybe my mother. She's 61,
Mm.
but she's quite healthy. She eats well, she exercises, she looks after her health. Now, she smokes as well, but she is quite healthy. But this whole fucking blacklisting people, you see this shit on Twitter, people, oh, you're only selfish, like saying, oh, you get COVID. What about everyone else that you're going to kill? Like, it's just complete.
Mm.
It's just pure hyperbole. Like, it's complete. Well, no, that's for humor's effect. It's complete exaggeration, and I just think it's completely taken out of. the sense of reality has been lost from the whole thing, Max, hasn't it? Like it's just people have lost sense of reality over it.
Well, I don't know. Like you, so I mean, for me, it's easier because I can like I'm a very stay home person, so I can just stay
Yeah,
home.
yeah,
But I can imagine for you it might be more difficult. So, I mean, like coming back, like I think everyone should be allowed to do whatever the fuck they want
yeah,
in the sense that like, do you want the government to tell you what to do? Which doesn't really mean it, like just because people should be allowed to make their own choices, it doesn't mean that they should not be responsible for the
yeah. It
well-being
doesn't
of
mean there's going to be
others.
complete anarchy or you're advocating for anarchy just because you want people to have the freedom and liberty to make their own responsible choices.
Yeah. Although like personally, I'm trying to limit it as much as I'm trying to wear a mask everywhere I go, pretty much. Um,
Can I ask you a question? This is
yeah.
interesting. So, like, in terms of wearing a mask, like, I also too, I wear a mask wherever I go. So in Ireland, the regulations are, I think they're pretty similar to the UK, to be honest. Like
Mm,
public transport, you have to wear a mask. All shops, you have to wear a mask. We've just recently gone into what's so Ireland has like Ireland, the Irish political system is completely in fucking in ribbons at the moment. Um, but we basically they created a framework, a 5-level framework in Ireland for living with COVID plan. So
mm-hmm.
level 1 to level 5, 5 being the most extreme, 1 being the least. And we have this thing called the National Public Health Emergency Team, NFET, which have become hugely prevalent in Ireland, Irish political discourse. And we've basically they increased the country from level 2. We were all level 2, and then 2 counties, Dublin and Donegal, were level 3, and now they've increased the whole country to level 3.
Mm,
But it was done under the pretense that NFET actually wanted us to go to level 5, which was back to the way fucking
right.
lockdown was in March or April, which was just completely disproportionate. And now we're level 3, but there's a big kind of movement. There's a lot of talk. Even the Taoiseach, who had been, he's like the vice president, so to speak. He'd be the second in command, and he was the ex Taoiseach, the ex prime minister Leo
Mm-hmm.
Varadkar. He's a doctor himself, and he said, look, a full lockdown is not on the rise if cases keep rising, because there are a lot of cases, but like it's just that the ICU rate, and like there's just, I'm no medical specialist by any means whatsoever, and I'm the same as everyone else, that if you want to find, this kind of goes back, this brings it onto social media. If you have a certain opinion, everybody will if you like your social media profiles have such an understanding of you that
Mm-hmm.
that's a good thing to talk about, actually, Max, social media, because I don't know if you've seen The Social Dilemma, but
No.
they
Oh, there's a new book. Yeah. Joe
oh
Rogan
it's,
was posting about it.
it's
Oh, no,
the
that's
new thing
something
on
else.
Netflix,
Oh,
the
no,
new
I've
thing
not
on
seen it.
Netflix.
What
Oh,
is it?
it's brilliant, Max. It's basically it's a documentary. It's about an hour and a half long on Netflix, which goes into the detail of how social media is used to, how we are the product. So our
Mm,
attention is not necessarily, it is demanded of us, and how the way the algorithms are actually written by the people who created these tools, they didn't foresee the consequences it's
mm,
had on social discourse and on socialization between people. And I think it goes a lot, it's funny, against, like, I actually, one of the reasons I deleted my Facebook and I deleted my Instagram. Now, I was going to do them anyway. I had already deleted my Instagram, but then I deleted my Facebook, so I don't even have Messenger
right.
anymore. And
Well,
I'm
when did
thinking
you
of
do that?
deleting Twitter, because
No, when?
I
When did you do that?
about a month ago. About a month ago.
Right. Yeah.
Give or
Yeah,
take, about a month ago.
because
Um,
I've been getting into social media a lot around the time
yeah,
we were living together, and
yeah,
I was kind of promoting it and like advocating for it, and you were always
yeah.
like, "Fuck that."
No, no, no.
But like,
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot more about social media, and like I find myself like the more time I spend on social media, the less happy I am.
Yep, yep.
Like, and like,
It's
don't
not
get
it's
me,
not real interaction.
yeah, some of them are like maybe 10% of my time on social media is like positive,
Yeah.
but
That's not that's not
90%,
that's not that's not a good, that's the
yeah, that's
scale,
not a good
the
number.
scale should be balanced the other way, like.
Yeah, that's not a good number. But
No.
y- you know, Then again,
I I would advise you to give it a watch. I think you have Netflix.
not anymore.
Oh, okay,
I
you
can't
can't see it.
afford it now. I'm really like I'm literally counting every penny. Like I'm literally
Okay,
like I think like because I have a savings account because I don't want to have everything in one account, because then
yeah,
I would be spending it like left and right. So I think in my like the account that I'm using to like go shopping and stuff, I think I've got like £7 in it. And
sorry. I'm sorry for that. Well, not really, no, because it's completely by your own choice.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
you.
No, I'm
So
I'm actually happier being poor for some weird reason. No, I
fair enough.
actually get that, like, because like I like the struggle, and like I know there's reward at the end of it. Like,
Yeah,
like I'm fairly confident. Like I really believe in myself, so
yeah, yeah.
I know there's reward at the end of that.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're very okay with delaying that reward as well, with delaying that gratification, with
Mm-hmm.
delaying. You're not looking for that instant, because let's call a spade a spade. You're quite a good software engineer. You started writing code when you were 10 years of age. You
Mm-hmm.
gave up a software job to take on a sales job because your manager mentioned it. And you were like, oh yeah, yeah, let's do that. And then
Mm-hmm.
you did that and you didn't like it, so you said, fuck it, no, I'm leaving it. And you haven't looked back since. You haven't. Do you know what I mean? You're clearly I don't dispute in any way, shape, or form that you have that belief in yourself, because not many people, regardless of what age you are, not many people can walk away from that kind of a stable salary and then just go off moving from city to city hopping on no money and trying to find different ways of making money and being contented with that lifestyle. That's not for everyone. And that's
Yeah.
and that is admirable though. That is admirable.
Well, like I was scared too, but I found myself more happy once I like the past 2 months. It's the happiest I've ever been. Like
Really?
I've got whole days to myself, like just working on things that I want to work on. The
So
podcast.
how many podcasts have you done?
Not that many. Like I think we've
No.
got like 10. I think this is the 10th episode.
Okay, okay. Have you been smoking joints?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Did
No, actually not
you
not
find it hard?
oh, did you I've got the vape now. Um
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it.
yeah. Yeah, I don't have it. Don't want it's stored away, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's it
Have you found a supplier in Cardiff?
well, I live in a very rough neighborhood, so all I have to do is walk outside.
Have you
Like
actually
this.
have you met anyone who will sell to you?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't have any phone numbers. I literally like every time I got it, I just walked out of my house, just walked on the street and asked people because it's
Really?
yeah, like it's the kind of neighborhood. This is how this neighborhood works. Like it's really like that's because like one motivation for moving to Cardiff was so I could get a cheaper flat. So I think this flat
Yeah,
is like 370, like this
it's
room
not
in
bad.
this flat. Yeah. Well, I actually think I overpaid for this neighborhood because like it's a really bad neighborhood. Like like pretty much every night there's like people screaming at night, like people arguing, like
Yeah, yeah,
drunks, or someone's driving a motorcycle like on full speed at like midnight.
yeah, yeah.
But
Well, the one thing I'd say, do you know, when we lived together in Glasgow,
hmm
we lived in the west end of
yeah,
Glasgow, that's in Thornwood, just outside Partick. For anyone who is listening, for anyone who is familiar, who would be familiar with Glasgow, Max kept saying to me that Glasgow is a lovely city, that it wasn't rough at all, and I was like, "Here, come on now, you need to. That if we lived there, I think we were the low in by and large in most places in Glasgow. I think they were quite similar to the street that you're living in Cardiff. Are you living in the city centre?
no, I'm
Like,
like 20 minutes away, a
oh
20-minute
right,
walk
okay, you're
from the city center.
okay.
I
20-minute
mean,
walk.
it's
Have you
it's a small
been?
city, so it's kind
It's
of
very
all.
small. I was in Cardiff 3 years ago. Um, I actually felt the most drinking I've ever done in 3 days. I've done in Cardiff. Do you know the
Really?
main?
Yeah,
or
I know
most
this St. Mary Street where all the bars are.
yeah. So do you know the McDonald's there?
Mm-hmm.
So I ate seven McDonald's out there over the course of one weekend, but that's like I literally all we were eating McDonald's and then Irish fries. But we started drinking in Rosslare. It's very southeast of Ireland. We started drinking at about 7:30, 8 a.m. in the morning, going on a boat over to Wales, and we drank until 2 a.m. So we drank for about 18 hours. This was on the Friday.
Wow.
Then woke up, played a rugby match. I had to go and get another box of fags, smoke two fags, have a pint, have a fry. This at night at 10 o'clock in the morning, play a rugby match, and then drink all day again on the Saturday for another 18 hours. And then on the Sunday, like we were like it was very bad, very unhealthy for my body. But on and then the Sunday wasn't so bad. We went back on the Sunday, but I couldn't like nobody could even breathe or fucking. It was with a rugby crowd, so it was a big piss up. But I fell asleep with homeless people on. You know, there's a lot of homeless people on St. Mary's Street.
I don't know. I've actually not seen many.
No, there was, but there was
No.
that time. I remember falling asleep in. I fell asleep in between a homeless couple outside
Oh.
that McDonald's. So we were staying in a hostel right across the road from
Mm.
McDonald's, and I fell asleep in between a couple. I think one of them fell asleep. The fellow fell asleep on my shoulder, or the girl fell asleep on my shoulder, and I was in between the two of them. And my best friend Kevin came out with McDonald's for me and for the homeless people. He said, "John, come on, fuck, you're like no disrespect, but you're gonna get scabies or something. Like, come on, you need to
Yeah.
get up." And he pulled me out, and we went back into the hostel, and I ended up going downstairs to talk to these New Zealand people. And I sometimes if I'm really really pissed drunk, I get really emotional for no reason, and I started crying about the homelessness crisis. And they were all I didn't realize they were all doing cocaine. And he was a big Maori guy, and he came over. He said, "Man, you seem nice, but like, do you mind just like not crying? You're kind of ruining our buzz a little." And I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." And I went up to bed, and I was still upset. Um, yeah, that was funny. But Cardiff, it's a nice city, but it did that took that I think that weekend shaved years off my life, to be quite honest. But I said I would love to go visit you, but sure, you're gonna be gone soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can visit me in Belfast, or I can
That's true.
visit you in Dublin.
It's only 2 hours. It's only 2 hours by the bus, I think, because it's
Hmm.
motorway all the way up the coast from Belfast to Dublin.
Yeah,
Come here.
I would definitely go to Dublin.
Have you researched what areas of like any areas of Belfast?
No, not yet. I've got a friend who is from Belfast, so I'll ask
Oh, right.
him.
Okay.
But I mean,
That's
I'm just gonna go on spareroom.com and just list by price the lowest, and I'll see what
I
I'll
presume
just see.
have you ever seen Max actually the documentary on minimalism on Netflix?
No.
It's brilliant. So it's basically people who are kind of doing what you're doing. So it's people who have had relatively either anything from decent standard working class income to relatively affluent upper middle class, even
Mm,
sometimes upper class incomes, and people who have not necessarily quit their jobs, maybe they haven't done it as extreme as you, but they have given up all of their possessions and
mm,
given up all of their things and say they've only kept basically what they need so that
mm,
they have excessive luxuries and they haven't had the materialism of having excessive goods and commodities, and they've found that their life satisfaction it all rose tenfold. Well, not
mm.
but it rose dramatically because they were they almost no, it wasn't like you in terms of they were enjoying embracing the struggle. They were more so kind of acknowledging the fact that we have so much of an excess of useless shit essentially,
Yeah.
and that they just found that their life satisfaction was much better. But I think that's one that you'd enjoy as well. Although knowing you, that might fucking persuade you to just go and sell everything you have so that you can just live freely for another fucking 2 years.
No, I think I'm actually gonna be the opposite of that. I think I'm gonna have a lot of stuff in the future, because like I never had any stuff, so for me it's gonna be like, I never
The
had that,
opposite.
so yeah, so I'm like I'm gonna get a nice car, and That's one thing I'm gonna need for flipping because it's very like, like I can carry maybe like 40 books in one box. So I'm gonna have to get a car so I can, drive from one charity ship to another, to another, to another, load up like 100 books and be done with it.
So is that just what you're doing for the time being, or do you
Pretty
plan
much,
on
yeah.
doing that for like another few months or a couple of years, or are you kind of taking it day by day?
Yeah. Well, I've got some ideas, but I don't want to make them public because
That's fair.
I don't want to lose the advantage. But but I've got some ideas. I'll tell you more some other time in private.
In a private forum.
Yeah, yeah. But I've got some ideas like around flipping books and stuff like that. How I can scale it up.
That's got.
But
Hey, would you
mm,
hang on 2 seconds, Max? Sorry, I'm just going to grab a cigarette.
sure,
I'm still smoking cigarettes. Just bear with me one moment. Apologies for public.
no worries.
Uh, yeah. Um, I miss smoking weed with you, Max, and fucking talking about absolutely everything and anything.
Yeah, like you're one of the few people I can talk about like interesting stuff because
Well,
you
you
know,
get bored of most other people.
well, it's just like most people stick to like very surface level stuff. It's like, have you seen this?
Yeah,
Have
I
you
get.
seen that?
It's because people are sometimes, Max, because people are afraid of being authentic. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said
yeah.
to me before,
Mm,
people are afraid of being their true selves, and they're more interested in kind of the social hierarchy. Do you know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
But you know what? I gotta admit, I find it from an opposite perspective, but also the same way. That makes no sense, but bear with me. That I don't have these conversations with many people either. Only a very, very limited few,
mm-hmm.
because conversations I have with people is small talk.
Yeah,
Because like I'm obviously an extrovert, so I don't mind small talk. That still
yeah.
energizes me. It doesn't even unnecessary talking doesn't bother me. But like the only people that I have these kind of conversations with, and no one, I don't have anyone with you because not many of them are not many people are as open as you are, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say are only extreme introverts.
Right.
Generally speaking,
Hmm.
it's funny you mentioned something earlier, and it is true. That's dawned on me. Um, Definitely, the pandemic or social distancing is definitely more difficult for extroverts, I think, than introverts.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I
like I've got some friends who they only hang out with friends online. Like pretty much that's what they do. So it really
okay,
doesn't affect them because like they chat with people and maybe they get on like Zoom calls or
maybe
Skype calls.
extroverts.
I don't. I would say most of them are introverts. The people who do that. But I don't
Yeah,
know. It
yeah,
seems like there's this. I don't know. Like I'm kind of worried we're gonna move towards this culture of like everyone's gonna be like disconnected physically but more connected
yeah,
digitally. Really worries
yeah.
me.
And you know what? It does. It worries me as well and it worries me from a vast range of perspectives as well. Probably similar to yourself. It worries me first and foremost that whether you're introverted or extroverted, we're still social beings, right? So we
Hmm.
still need social contact. It's evolutionary. Like it's not fucking, it's just part of our
Hmm.
natural behavior that's ingrained into our psyche and our fucking subconscious. But if we if we lose, like, social skills will diminish that
Hmm.
people have in order to, when you meet someone, like, one of the reasons that me and you were able to get on and learn quick was because I suppose we both have worked, like, I probably came more naturally to me, but you had worked a lot on your social skills with people as well. Like you
Hmm.
taught me how you forced yourself in situations, but we were able to build up a bit of rapport, talk about little things first in order to build up a trust to then have more conversations through social skills. And like social anxiety has been on the rise dramatically for the last number of years. It's very synonymous with the rise in the usage of social media as well. And
Hmm.
the studies have been done on that. And that's like it, there's a real push. It scares the shit out of me that there's a real push that people think you can replace. Like this is great, right? It is great catching up, and
Hmm.
it's great to have the advent of technology during a pandemic. but like people, I think there's a real desire for people to be back, to enjoy crowds and enjoy big spectacles, and like I can't wait till I can go to a gig, or I can go to a
Mm,
match, or even I've had a few sessions out here in my house. I've hosted a few sessions, and I had one big one, about 17 or 18 people were out here a couple of weeks ago, and a few of them were, oh, fucking spiders, fuck off. Sorry. But they, and it was great. And I just loved the social contact of it. And I was even saying it to one of the lads there. I was like, lad, this is kind of like, this is necessary. Do you know, this is like, this people meeting up and actually having face-to-face conversations is, it's required. It's necessary. Like it does terrify me if people become increasingly digitalized, because if you become increasingly digitalized, people are also, they're not holding back in what they're saying to each other, which you might say is sometimes
mhm,
a good thing, but also it's becoming like, you know, online discourse has become incredibly volatile. Like I
mhm.
have, um, the only one I kind of use now is Twitter, because I still look. I'm a
Yeah,
bit like you. I love it. I
Twitter
love.
is the most violent one.
Yeah, it is, and like I still use it because, like, I'm like you in that I'm a consumptionist of information, and
Mm.
I like to know what's going on. But even if you just have a quick scroll of your news feed, fuck me, pink lad, it's all negative. There's nothing positive on it.
Oh
It
man,
is.
like
It's all negative.
I've been to some really strange places on Twitter, like some really strange
Can I
places.
ask? Can I ask where?
Yeah, like so. I mean, what's interesting about Twitter, like, do you scroll, like, do you just follow people and like consume information, or do you engage with people on Twitter?
I've never engaged. I've never posted a comment in my life. I've never
Okay,
actually engaged with anyone.
okay.
I've only ever
So
liked. I've never even really. I've only liked. I've liked tweets. I've never even retweeted anything.
okay, and do you follow people who are mostly famous, or do you follow people who are like, just regular people?
I wouldn't say they're famous in terms of, most of them would probably have like the blue tick, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, but they wouldn't be like mainstream famous. Like
Yeah,
they might be, like, you know what I mean? Like I'd follow a lot. I get a lot of my sports journalism on
yeah,
that.
but
I
like
get,
in the hundreds of thousands of followers.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There would be like,
So
I don't,
so
I don't follow ordinary lay people.
yeah. So what's interesting about Twitter is it's kind of like meeting people in real life, in the sense that, so imagine you go to a party and you talk to a bunch of people, and maybe you get some of their phone numbers, and then you talk to them, and then through those people, so let's say you meet a guy called Mike, and then you talk to Mike, and Mike introduces you. Yeah, we had a flatmate called Mike.
Yeah, me
Mike
and Mike had me and Alex lived with a guy called Mike.
uh and Mike introduces you to Jack, and Jack introduces you to Emily, and Emily
Yeah,
is in a completely different social circle. So now you're in a
yeah,
completely different social circle, different values. People think differently, dress differently, and so on.
yeah,
So now you're in a different circle, and then you meet other people. Through those people, again, a different different circle again.
yeah.
And Twitter is kind of like that. So if you engage with people, you're going to meet new people, and then you're going to move between different circles. So,
But can I ask a question about that though?
mhm,
Because I wonder, is the algorithm, um is it designed in such a way that you will only be exposed to people who are like-minded? So, you know, birds of a feather flock together. So what I've found is, even if I was surfing something on the web, if I was, geez, that's such an old phrase, isn't it? That's like a 1990s
yeah, it
phrase,
is.
surfing on the web. But even if I was Googling something, whatever the point, or the ideology of the article that I was reading or something at that time, and you know me, I'm quite broad ideologically speaking,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to actually refrain from sticking to a specific ideology. I'm trying to find my own. Um,
Hmm.
Even the tweets that are coming up in my news feed and stuff, and the people that are coming up, are people who share similar dispositions to what I was just reading,
Hmm.
because I feel that is or just is finding the information that I'm, obviously, that I'm how do I articulate this? That I'm looking at online and trying to
Yes.
find what they think I would be also interested in. That's also scary because I think that like you mentioned, do you think that it introduces you to new different types of
Mm-hmm.
social circles and do different groups? Whereas I think the only one that properly does that, I think, is Reddit.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Reddit.
So let me address that because I don't want to get distracted. So let me address that. So
Okay.
the algorithm on Twitter is present, but it's not as aggressive on other social media sites.
Okay.
So the algorithm on Facebook will be much more aggressive, where you're gonna see, you're gonna see posts that have a lot of likes, and you're gonna see posts that are optimized by the machine learning engine to your specific interests. On Twitter, it's kind of less aggressive
Okay.
in the sense that you're gonna see, first of all, you have control over who you follow, and
Yeah.
you're mostly gonna see, like, if someone retweets something, there's a lot more control in the sense that if someone retweets something, their followers are probably gonna see it. Whereas, on Facebook, for example, if you share something that doesn't really mean anything, that's just a hint for the algorithm to make something more, to give it more points, basically. But
Okay.
on
Okay.
Twitter, retweets actually matter. Like, if you retweet something, people are actually going to see it. Not everyone, because there's the algorithm, but through retweets you see other people that people you follow know. So again, it's like a party. So,
Okay.
let's say, you talk to Mike and Mike knows Emily. um, on Twitter, the equivalent of that would be you follow Mike and Mike retweets something by Emily. So if and of course,
Okay.
you're only gonna see things from that narrow perspective because you are in that social circle. So Mike is only gonna retweet things by Emily, but obviously Mike is gonna associate with people who are similar to him. So Emily is gonna be similar to Mike. But then if you look hard enough, then you have the occasional person who moves between the social circles. So maybe occasionally,
Okay.
you
And
know
have
Mike
you
follows
have you
Emily.
found then have you found then Twitter to be like more reflective of like genuine kind of discourse when you look that way? Do you know, kind of
Well, I
more
mean, it's it's
realistic
it's
discourse?
it's still all fake, but it's the one that's most it approximates real exchange of ideas the most, like compared to Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. You can actually
Okay.
meet people on
No,
Twitter.
fair.
Like, you can actually like move between those social circles. So like a lot of people that I follow on Twitter, I know from like my programming, my software engineering friends, people from work, and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then some like more political types that I follow. But I kind of got into like, like there's like a social circle on Twitter called Money Twitter, like people who figure out how to make money.
Money Twitter.
Yeah. So like people who
Okay.
are into flipping and affiliate marketing and like drop shipping, just like any kind of like
Okay.
stocks, any like investing, real estate, anything, like they're into making money. And
Okay.
but so when I said I moved into some dark corners of Twitter, I meant that so for example, there's like a there's like this specific, it really feels like a place, like this place on Twitter, filled with Catholics, and it's like Catholic Twitter, but they all use pseudonyms. None of them use real names because
Okay.
they have views, like they think, like a lot of them, like when I talked to them one-on-one, they told me that they fear that they would be basically like banned from employment and stuff like that if
Yeah, yeah.
their views were exposed.
Would these be people, as you said, who are using like different pseudonyms and different monikers than their own real life ones? Like, do you think do you think that's a good thing? Like, do you think people shouldn't, like, that people should be allowed to make what you might say is a fake profile, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I think they should be allowed to do it, like again, maximizing freedom for that. Um, and then, from the individual's perspective, on the other hand, I know for a fact, like I'm pretty sure most of these people live very stressful lives. If you have to
Mm.
worry about like maintaining a double identity, like that's going to be very stressful.
Oh
So
yeah.
that that's probably not good for them. I think
Mm.
I think they should be allowed to do it, but I don't think it's very good for them.
Yeah, I see. I wonder on the flip side of that. I get that someone should be like, you know, they should have the freedom to do that if they want, and it's more of a kind of a product of the system whereby that if they're not, for instance, if they are working in a corporate environment and if they express views that are not shared in a corporate environment, then if they were to expose their true um, identity via their Twitter, they could lose their job or they could lose
Hmm.
job opportunities, or whatever the case would be. I think that for me, that's more of an issue. Whereas the other issue with that for me is that when people don't have to account for who they are on Twitter, it it incentivizes in some way, I believe, that volatility, that
Yeah,
lack of civility,
yeah.
that not
Even
necessarily
verbal
promoting violence.
violence. Well,
Yeah, verbal
well, if
violence.
if you can
Yeah,
call it that.
yeah, like it's just it's a lack of civility. Like it's a lack
Mm,
of people when people often react online. Um, people like have such a disdain and they have such a strong moral viewpoint on things. Like it's funny, I was talking to my friend Paddy about this the other day, and he's like, lad, you can't make any mistakes anymore. Do you know
mm,
what I mean? In terms of what things that you say or things that you do, you can't make mistakes. Like, because everything is fucking documented, and you could say one thing and there will be a group of people who will jump on that
mm,
and absolutely criticize and say you're a hateful bigot, you're X, Y, and Z, and that's not conducive to that's not positive discourse. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to manage. I think Twitter is something that I'll have to use, but maybe I'll have to um kind of be
yeah,
more
I mean,
mindful about who I
honestly,
actually
if you're just scrolling
follow.
and if you're just scrolling and I would just get rid of it. Like the only reason I have it is so I can get the message out. But if you're just scrolling and like, do you not get enough news already? You know what I mean? Like everything's gonna
No,
like, are you
no,
not connected enough already?
no, it's not about being connected. It's not about being connected. Not for me. I've become very contented with being disconnected from certain things, but for me, I've always been interested in being connected in what's going on in, for example, U.S. political discourse,
Hmm.
long before Donald Trump, long before you know
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If
everything.
something happens, someone's gonna tell you like immediately because that's how
Not Max,
fast
not
the
not
media
not when
should.
you not. Well, the only person that I've been seeing on a regular basis for the last 2 months is my mother, and the only thing my mother is seeing is fucking shit on Facebook and like things on the Irish news. And like we have a news channel
Yeah.
RTE, which is just like it's full on. There's so much propaganda, and it's like there's just so much propaganda that I think it's just lost a lot of credibility for me, to be quite honest. Um, and so I think the fact that we're not actually seeing each other, that people yes, partially it is to stay to remain connected, to be on Twitter. I do. That is
Hmm.
true. It is partially to remain connected, but how healthy that connection is something that I'm still that I'm currently kind of navigating. That I'm like, Jesus, is this actually like it only really dawned on me like last week or the week before, I think, and I was looking at it and I was like, do you know what? The way people are interacting here, this is not healthy. This is not, and not only is it not healthy, it's not. I kept saying this to you. I don't believe that social media is reality. I don't believe
Mm.
it's reality. And it's so new, and it's so um it's such a new form of how people interact, and it's become so prevalent so quickly that there's so many misunderstandings from everyone. Us, Jack, fucking Dorsey, everyone. Like, you know, people who work for Twitter. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody has a full conceptual idea of the effect that this will have on, you know, just discourse between people, be it political, be it social, be it economic, whatever the case may be. But I don't know. Do you not think that one thing I've noticed on Twitter is people are becoming more and more entrenched in their views,
Hmm.
whereas the ideology that Twitter purports is for people to become more open-minded and to find alternative viewpoints to enlighten them. And I think
Yeah.
that that's an idealistic way of viewing it. I don't think that that's what's currently happening. I feel that people are becoming more and more entrenched, and I think if you look at even just using America as an easy example to use, that like the American political discourse has become completely entrenched.
Yeah.
There's no space for understanding, for kind of, I feel like I'm going to sound like Joe Rogan now when he talks about we have to have humanity and compassion and be nice to people. But it's true. He's right, you know, and he is right when he says that there's an absence of that currently. You know,
Hmm.
and not like we were all, prior to social media, everyone got along. No, of course they didn't. But it's really become amplified, I think. And I think Twitter has a significant responsibility in that. Not the only one, but absolutely not at all. I think it's more just you know, it's I don't know. I just
Well, it's
fucking
I really think that it's just that information travels so much faster, and like you're connected to more negativity now than you ever
yes,
were before.
that's
So I
true, because
think
the
that's what
negativity
it
is
comes
actually
down to.
less now than it ever was.
The what?
The negativity, like, we've never lived in better times. We
Well,
never have. We've never lived.
except for 2020, that's been kind of rough, you know.
Right, yeah, fair, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Broadly speaking, human suffering has tremendously decreased as a result over the, even globally speaking.
Hmm.
Um,
Well,
it
it's a
has
strange thing.
tremendously.
In some ways, like, there's less diseases, there's less, poverty, there's less, even crime, there's less crime in most places. But, then again, people seem more unhappy because,
Yeah,
actually
isn't
happiness,
it? It's just
yeah,
it's so counterintuitive.
well, I mean, it is very clear, like if you actually study happiness, and like when you realize that, you have this like sense of meaning that you get from going after goals, and like realizing like self-actualization and everything, then it kind of makes sense, because even if things do get better, that means there's less struggle, that means there's less things to work on, and that means there's less fulfillment, there's less meaning, and that means people will be more unhappy,
So does that
right?
mean the answer is we should all just devolve back to 100 years ago and rebuild society up again?
Well, Kierkegaard said that there will come a time where people will complain that things are too perfect, and they will want
Yeah.
to um, destroy
Did
everything.
he did he did he did he actually did he foresee that? Did he?
Yeah, in the 19th century, quite a long time ago. Uh, and
He said so. I know he was him, and isn't it Nietzsche that you used to talk
yeah,
about quite a lot as
hmm,
well? Like,
yeah, him and
they
Nietzsche.
were both philosophers. They were both philosophers. They're two of Jordan Peterson's
Hmm.
favorite philosophers as well, and he quotes them quite often and he references them. Um, she's that there's a lot of foresight in that. I'd never actually thought about, like, because it's funny. Well, do you know what, Max? If it keeps going this way, whereby the the better and better that things get in certain, for instance, Western societies, the more and more unhappy people get, then something will have to give. Oh, you're take your time. Your battery died, did it?
John, can you say something
Yeah,
now?
you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can. It's just there's a little bit of distorting. It's okay. There's a bit of kind of sound interference,
Yeah.
just a small bit.
Yeah, so my earphone just died. Um, so
Um,
I'm using my laptop speaker now. So
it's manageable anyway. It's manageable.
okay.
Do you know what, Max? Do you know what, Max? I really wish I was stoned right now.
I really wish I was stoned too, but I'm doing sober October. I'm not doing any alcohol
Oh, are you?
or weed or anything for the whole month.
That's good.
Yeah,
It's
that's
good. It's a good idea. Have you don't drink that often anyway, though, don't you know?
no, but I miss like when I haven't had anything for a week now, and I'm starting to miss it now. Like
Oh yeah.
I have these cravings. Like if I listen to a song that like I used to listen to while I was drunk, or a song that talks about like drinking or something like that, and it brings back those memories. I'm like, fuck, I wish I had a beer now.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. I get that. Sober October is it's it's proven. I know in Ireland, October is the month that is most synonymous with mental health issues.
Mm,
Um, because of the change in seasons. So a clinical psychologist told me that before. Because of the change in seasons. So there's a lot of sad depression. So it's
mm,
like it's like a vitamin D deficiency. Um, and it's one of the huge consequences of the change in the season to winter. So it's one of the reasons why I'm I suppose I'm glad. I suppose that I've got a job now in October because October's always been synonymous, especially for
mm,
myself as well, of my worst episodes of depression in my history have always been mostly been in October/November time. Um, so I'd say I know in Ireland, like mental health services are going to come under tremendous pressure, tremendous. Like there's it, there's so many one of the biggest things that annoys me about COVID, well, not one of the biggest things, but something that does annoy me is the people who think that COVID is everything and that
yeah,
other aspects of life are not suffering. They're not acknowledging the collateral damage of the impact of COVID on all cohorts of society in various different ways. And then because the discourse has become so volatile on things like Twitter and whatnot, anyone who comes out and says, for instance, oh, sure, young people, fuck it, they're all just irresponsible shits, and sure, like they all need their fucking snowflakes, millennials, and they just need to get on with things. Then, like that, that kind of reaction, it it negates the genuine impact that it might cause. For example, in Ireland, right? I'll just give you an example. If you think about it, say if I was in last year of high school, or we call it secondary school in Ireland, you're 18, whatever,
yeah,
you didn't do your leaving cert, you didn't do your final exams, you didn't get to see any of your friends, you
yeah,
didn't have a debs, you didn't have a graduation mass, you didn't get, and then when you go, if you went to college, then you didn't get to actually associate with new
yeah,
people and find new people. That's critical at that juncture to find new people. People they're living in bubbles, like in universities and stuff in Ireland. They're living in bubbles where they're not, like, most classes have gone to online now. I think about eighty
yeah,
percent of them. Like, and then people are saying, oh well, that's like that has to be done. That has to be done because that could cause one death. I was like, come on, bigger picture thinking here. Like COVID, and I think that that's part of how people have become so entrenched. So the people, when the whole pandemic started, there was a certain cohort that that kind of split between those who were kind of COVID, and those people who were thinking about other cohorts of society as well. It became wider and wider and wider, and people aren't acknowledging the severity of the impact across all kind of wide ranges of society. Even older people, like the
mm,
lack of socialization. Socialization has been proven to negate the effects of aging.
of
So especially
course.
for older people, and like that, like for old people to just have to cocoon, that's not natural. That's not, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not going to allow anyone to make me feel guilty for my social contacts. I need socialization. I am an extrovert. I love talking to people. I find it very tough on my own. I'm lucky now. I'm going into an office. There's about 7 or 8 people in the office, so I'm going to be able to bounce off everyone and have the crack with everyone and stuff like that. But and I have a letter, so I'm technically an essential worker now as well. My boss sent me like a letter that I
Mm.
have for transport because the restrictions in Ireland. Um, but like I need that. I do need I need that. I need that bit of people contact. You know what I mean? I do. And it was one of the big reasons why anytime I met up with a couple of my friends at the weekend, it wasn't going drinking that made me happier temporarily over the last 2 months. It was
Mm-hmm.
just being around friends and being around people in general, and just being able to get outside my own head. Do you know what I mean? Because like I get very bored on my own. I do. I often get very bored on my own, and I don't. It can sap my energy quite
Mm.
tremendously, in fact. So like,
Yeah.
I'm just. I suppose I'm thinking big picture. There's a lot. There's a lot, and I'm. Trust me. Of all the people who've been affected by COVID, I'm in the very small percentile of people who've been severely affected. Very small. There's so many cohorts of society, even people's businesses that have completely
Mm-hmm.
gone under. So the pubs in Ireland, like they're all going to a pub. The pub in Ireland now is like, it's more important than the church. Like it genuinely is. It's
Yeah.
more important than it's going more important than religion, and like it just in terms of the social kind of standing it has, and like there's so many publicans and pub owners that are fucked. There's so many.
Yeah.
There's a good few pubs even in my local town that are closing down now that they've completely gone under, and I just feel that there has to be a little there has to be a bit more balance. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? There has to be a bit
I've
more
only
balance.
just started realizing that, as I became a business owner, I guess technically, because I'm
Yeah.
doing all this flipping, and now in my head I'm thinking, oh, if there's a second lockdown, all the charity shops are gonna close down. How am I
Yep.
gonna get my
Yep.
money? You know, and
Yep.
and you know,
And could you imagine, Max? Imagine that stress amplified if you were 15 years older with two
mm,
kids away from a mortgage.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
A mortgage on your
It's
house
fucking.
and a rent to pay on your pub as well, right? Because
Yep.
like
Yep.
I do all
Yep.
my business from home, so that's easier for me. I don't have any mortgages. I
Yeah.
don't have any kids. Don't have student debt. Don't have you know,
You don't have any rent. You don't have any business commercial expenses or anything.
yeah. So like
Yeah.
I
It's
don't
true.
have any employees. Like it's easy for me.
No.
Um,
And you're responsible. And like at the end of the day, I suppose, like one part of your situation which is advantageous for you is the fact that deep down, all if shit hits the fan, all things come to worst. You know that the industries that you have expertise and knowledge in are still hiring and would
mhm,
still hire you if necessary. So if you have those financial burdens and worries, because financial stress is huge for people's psyche, it's huge,
mhm.
then you know that, right, well, look, if this didn't work out, at least I do know, and if I couldn't afford to pay my rent, I could get a job
Mm-hmm.
relatively easily. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I mean, I can
And
always
not
get
that you need to be like grateful for that.
any job. Like I can get just like a minimum wage job, anything that allows me to pay
Yeah.
my bills because I don't need that much money. But like the discourse has become so polarized that, like, I remember I knew someone who said, you know, we were talking about lockdowns and how lockdowns in the UK were introduced late and lifted early, and he was like, oh, it's because in this country we care more about making money than we care about people's lives. And it's like, no, I mean, like, some people just think that if you want to open up, like if you want to lift lockdowns, you must be like a greedy capitalist. you
Oh,
you only want to make more money. And like it's like have these people met any actual business owners? Like 99% of business owners,
most of them are struggling. Most business owners are not rich.
yeah, they have a lot of responsibility, not that much money,
Yeah.
and they're just regular people like you and me who just want to make an
Yeah.
honest living.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
And like I think it's that it's it's that vilification of
Mm-hmm.
people who want to remove lockdown is one thing that I have a problem with. That vilification of people who are advocating for the sensible easing of restrictions. And yes, there was someone, like I saw someone said, like, I don't know if you saw it in the UK. I'll send you the link. There's been a huge there was about almost close to 1,000 academics across multiple universities in the UK have signed this open letter to the UK government, pleading with them to open up society for the
Mm.
non-vulnerable, right? So that they were trying to promote the opening up of almost all restrictions for them, and then for people who are in the extremely high vulnerable case to cocoon. And
Mm.
then some politician came out and said that's age-based apartheid, and I was like, how over the top is that? I was like, it's not. This is a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Apartheid was based on, you know, fucking ethnic cleansing and ethnic
Mm-hmm.
superiority. This is about who is unfortunately
Well,
more exposed
but
to the virus.
the thing is, I wouldn't even be opposed to letting vulnerable people just make their own decisions. That's the
Yes,
thing.
if
Make
that's
your
it,
own decisions.
yeah,
You know, like
exactly.
if
Because
you feel like
people are saying like,
you should stay home,
go
then
on,
stay
sorry.
home. If you feel like you should go out, then go out. You know, like the thing about like regulations, like regulating people's choices is that people feel they like if you like who do you like who do you tell what to do? Kids. You know what I mean? Like people who
Mm-hmm.
people who you tell what they should do, they're kids. And if you talk about like adults, if you treat people like kids, then it removes that responsibility from them, and then they start acting like kids, and there's this like weird.
That's true, actually, Max. That is true.
So I'll give you an example. Like if you're like everyone must wear a mask in these specific circumstances, then people wear masks in those specific
Yeah.
circumstances, but they might not wear masks in other circumstances where they otherwise would, just because they're going by the rule rather than what's actually
Yep.
right.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm
Like, it's funny that you mentioned there about like people having the individual choice and treating people like children, like the effect that that'll have. Like, no, who's to say that all the people who are vulnerable want to cocoon either? Now, I'm not saying that they all want to come out and party and that they don't have a genuine, sincere, and honest fear and a warranted fear of getting COVID. I'm not saying that, but who's to say that not all of them, that there's not also a proportion of those people who want the choice to say, do you know what? I'm aware of the risks. I accept the risk that I can take of me going out and partaking in society and living, and I choose to accept those risks. Who is anyone to say that they can't do that? And if they can also do that, then why can't everyone do that? Do you know, why can't everyone be
mm,
given that opportunity? Is it people, and people say, oh, people aren't to be trusted. Look at the house parties. Look at this. And I was like, but is that not more of a kind of a, a
that's a
reflection of society? Because,
that's a problem with
do you know, because,
everything. Like you can make that argument about everything. You know, like you can say, uh, there's people who commit crimes with knives. Do you want to like ban knives? You know, like you can say there's
yeah,
people who have, there's people who have sex.
firearms in America.
Yeah, firearms in America. People have unsafe sex and then end up with all kinds of problems. Like, do you want to ban sex? Like, do you want to
they
regulate
basic they
sex?
basically they ba- they basically have. Have you seen Durex have come under trouble?
Really? Why?
Yeah, the sales of Durex have dropped dramatically.
Oh, right. Yeah, I
They
guess
actually
so.
have for condoms. They actually have to lack. Do you know, lack people not being in pubs and stuff. Most
Mm,
people, especially in Western societies, get fucking have sex when they're drunk, especially if they're not in long-term relationships. But there was something I wanted to say there about the responsibility thing. Oh, actually, like, have you paid any attention to what's going on in Sweden?
No. I mean, I know
So
they
in
didn't really
Sweden,
have a lockdown.
no.
Yeah.
So in Sweden, they brought in quite sensible measures. So they kept school going from the ages of 0 to 16. 16 and older had to do online classes.
Mm-hmm.
They have allowed all shops and businesses to remain open at all times. They have not necessitated the need for wearing a mask in any public. They reckon, there was a Swedish epidemiologist who said he reckons maybe 1 in 15 people wear a mask, but nobody pays any attention to anyone who does or doesn't. It's a personal choice. And people have faith in, obviously in Scandinavian countries, they have more faith in their governments. Whether, like, Sweden is a very interesting example. They have a lot of faith in their government. So they feel a person's sense of self-responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So people have been sensible. Now, they haven't, Sweden were vilified when that first happened. They said, how you're a pariah state, and they're like completely irresponsible. But if there is, I'm no immunologist, and I'm not going to claim to be, but if there is such a thing as herd immunity, then I would imagine more than likely they're going to be the ones to achieve it before any of the rest of us, because they're allowing the virus to permeate into healthy cohort society so people can develop antibodies. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I
Like,
mean, they have among the
go on.
highest. They have among the highest death rates last time I checked, though. So, it didn't
No,
work.
they're not in the highest.
I don't know. Last time I checked, they were
They
like,
had, they have about, I think they've had about 5,000 deaths. I think 5 or 6,000,
oh.
because in Ireland,
I mean per population, so like per million people. I think they had among the
yeah,
highest.
I think Sweden is a population. It's not much more than Ireland. It's not much more than Ireland.
Yeah, it's a very small country, but if you take number of deaths per million people, I think they were among the highest, uh
Well, do you
together
know
with
where it's actually the
Spain.
do you know where the highest is in Northern Ireland, or the highest is in Europe?
The absolute number, the UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, no. Proportionately.
I think it was Spain last time I checked.
Northern Ireland at the moment.
Really?
Yeah. Northern
Well,
Ireland is so, like, Northern Ireland is huge. So Northern Ireland has a population of now this is cases, not deaths. So
mhm.
Northern Ireland has a population of, I think, somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million people,
Yeah,
somewhere
something
in
like
around
that.
that.
Hmm.
And yesterday they had 1,000 cases.
Really?
Oh yeah, they're like double the amount of the Republic of Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland has about triple or quadruple the population of Northern Ireland. It is. Yeah. I'm just scaring you into going to Belfast, but actually Belfast, you're just like, shit, maybe I'm not going to Belfast.
No, I actually
Because
don't.
they're trying.
I don't mind. The only thing I'm worried about is maybe they're gonna close down. They're not gonna let me in.
Yeah, well, you see, the thing is, in Northern Ireland is obviously, as I tried to explain to you before, I tried to give you a little bit of history knowledge on Northern Ireland
Yeah.
and the way it's part of the UK, but it should be ours, really. Give us our 6 counties back. But no, it's not. I'm not a staunch Republican, but so um, obviously Northern Ireland is part of the UK, so they're abiding by UK protocols,
Hmm.
but there's so much movement cross border between Northern and Southern Ireland that they've tried to create some kind of a commission or some kind
Mm.
of a cross border task force.
Yeah.
But it's not. I don't think it's working, because Northern Ireland hasn't had a government for 3 years. So
No.
they have had no government. They've had no government. There's been no government in Northern Ireland for 3 years.
How
They've
come?
had what's called a devolved. What?
How come? Why don't they have a government?
So they used to have what was known as a General Assembly. So it
Hmm.
was a mixture of, say, Catholic and Protestant communities, mixture of Catholic and Protestant parties. And then prior to the Brexit vote, there was a vote to enshrine the place of the Irish language in Northern Ireland. So to put, say, like in Oscuelga, in Irish language, signposts and stuff in Northern
Mm-hmm.
Ireland, and that was refuted then by the Protestant communities. And I can't remember the specifics of how it actually went down, but effectively they came to a stalemate
Mm.
politically, and they couldn't actually have a consensus to run the assembly.
Right.
So the politicians who were elected still were getting paid. They were still getting paid, um, like for the last 2 or 3 years, without actually having, like, taking votes on things and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just being run because 2/3 of Northern Ireland is, maybe about 60% of Northern Ireland is civil servants. It has a huge public sector
Really?
infrastructure. And so they were still being, it was still being paid for by London, like by mainstream UK. So they've had no political, at the one time when Northern Ireland has been at the crux of the Brexit issue politically and socially, they actually haven't had a say almost. Like
Wow.
it's kind of it's quite bonkers, to be honest. And it's not something that's generally acknowledged. But yeah, they have what's called a devolved. I think it's a devolved assembly.
So they have
I
no
don't think
ability to
it's back yet, to
pass
be honest.
laws? They have no ability to pass laws?
No, no, but they're not passing anything new for Northern Ireland specifically. Everything has maintained the status quo from before,
Yeah.
because it's still being run by Westminster, by London, so to
Yeah,
speak.
of course. But like, like, so for
Yeah,
example, Scotland has, they have UK law, but they also
yeah,
have their own laws. So does that mean for the past three
yeah.
years there's been no new laws in Northern Ireland? Wow.
Don't think so. Don't think so. Yeah, it's a bit mad. It's a bit mad. Oh, like, to be honest, Max, it's so complex. I actually don't know what the political tension is like up there at the moment. I'm curious because, like, it's funny. The Brexit, like, they're still trying to push through with Brexit.
Yeah.
Like, for, and, like, the uncertainty of the pandemic, like, any business will tell you, the biggest one of the biggest kind of barriers to making decision making in business is uncertainty. So
Hmm.
everyone has had the uncertainty of the pandemic, and now they have the uncertainty of Brexit to go
Yeah.
with it. And it seems like Boris Johnson's going to proceed with that, and they're going to proceed. The Tories are going to proceed with Brexit, by hook or by crook. And, like, Northern Ireland, yeah, it's very. I actually, to be honest, I don't know, because there's a lot of anti-Northern Irish sentiment in the south of Ireland at
Mm.
the moment, and there was a big documentary that came out there recently called Unquiet Graves, and it was about the RUC, Royal Ulster Constabulary, and they were the, say, the Protestant police force, and how
Hmm.
they targeted the killing of, say, Catholic Republicans, of I think about 80 of them. And it was like, I haven't actually seen it myself. I've only seen the reaction to it.
Mm.
And there was the political parties in Ireland. So I'll give you a very quick rundown of in Ireland at the moment, the Southern Ireland. We
Okay.
have two political parties that have ever had proper power: Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. For the last 100, Ireland as a state has been around for 100 years, and they are a big boys club. Nobody else has had power. There's been sometimes there's been coalitions with smaller groups. Labour
Hmm.
have gotten in an odd time, but never without the two of them. They have always been against each other. They've never been together. In the last election, which took place in February, I think February, yeah, it was February. Sinn Féin, which are a Republican party, they would have had a lot of associations with the IRA. You've heard of the IRA, haven't you?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they would have had a lot of associations with the IRA. They were kind of quite a left wing party as well. They are quite a left wing party, and they got the highest votes, but they have then since been marginalised by the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael in Ireland, and
Mm.
they're the ones who, like, it's a fucking big boys club. I'm not a huge Sinn Féiner by any stretch of means, but I hate the status quo, and I hate that establishment. It's pure establishment, between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, in Ireland. And there's a lot of what's known in Ireland. They sometimes will call people a West Brit. So it's quite an Irish term.
West
So they
Brit.
call us a West Brit, yeah. So you're like
Okay.
a West. So basically, it's an Irish person who has a certain affiliation or positive sentiment towards British manners and British ways of viewing things. And it's not necessarily derogatory. It's not anti-British. It's more so people anti-Irish, I believe. In any case, it's the people who are West Brit are anti-Irish as opposed to anti-British. It's quite complex, to be quite honest. It's quite complex. But I'm very curious because there's going to be like I'd say in the next 10 years there'll be a full united Ireland. The Northern Ireland will become part of the Republic of Ireland, even if you just judge it by census data. The Protestants are generally a lot of them are leaving, and there will be a majority of Catholics, and how they're going to amalgamate that into a full united Ireland, I'm very curious. But anyway, that's their issues that you probably have no interest in, but I don't know if you'll hear
I
if
would like to
because
see that. I would like to see a united Ireland, even though I don't know anything
so
about.
would
I don't know anything about your history, but it just seems like you've got this like country split in two. It doesn't really seem like it serves anyone. And
no, well,
also what's
it
like
doesn't, and it's complex.
the Republic of Ireland is so much more rich economically than Northern Ireland. So I think
It is.
GDP in
It is.
the Republic of Ireland.
If we were to the Irish people, if we were to accept a United Ireland, the south of Ireland, they reckon economic studies from the Economic and Social Research (ESRI) Institute of Ireland have expected us to, on average, to have about 5,000 euros
Mm-hmm.
tax hike. So we'd have to pay 5,000 euros extra in tax per person
Mm,
working per person of the labor force, because of the discrepancy between our GDP and their GDP, because
mm,
but they have a great public sector infrastructure, because the UK has a great public sector
yes.
infrastructure. Down south in Ireland, it's shit. Like there's not one single underground train in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland. We have our public sector. They have they're privatizing all of the bus routes in Ireland. Like they are
No,
all,
they've
like I
already
was looking
done
at the
that in the
services from
UK.
Dublin.
Like all the buses are private in the UK,
Yeah,
right?
but public sector, they are, most of them, they are, yeah. But you still have not all the train services, ScotRail, like in Glasgow and that, they weren't
That's
that's
private.
public sector.
I think
That's
that's.
public.
Are you sure? I think they
Is it?
privatized everything.
I thought,
I don't think there's a
I
single.
thought it was public.
Yeah, it used to be public, and then I think Tories made it. They privatized the railway system. That's when the prices went up, like
It
the
would make
prices of
sense.
tickets.
It would make sense. They have tried to privatize all of the
Mm-hmm.
public sector infrastructure, but like I know obviously the UK has a much bigger population, so because they have much bigger population, there's much more of a necessity for good public
Mm-hmm.
transport infrastructure. But in the Republic down here, it's absolutely shite. So it'd be interesting to see how they would mix if the Northern Ireland and the Southern Ireland actually rejoin. But yeah, it's complex. There's not a huge desire in the parts of the Republic where I'm from for United Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. It's only in kind of certain parts down in southwest of the Republic of Ireland, west of Republic of Ireland, and then all the border counties, like in, say, like, also Northern Ireland is 6 counties, but
Mm-hmm.
Northern Ireland is part of the province of Ulster, which is 9 counties. So there's 3 counties: Donegal, Cavan, and Monaghan, which are in Ulster, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not in the Republic of Ireland. So they're right on the border, but so there's like huge cross-border travel and
So
stuff
hold
between them.
on.
It's
So
huge.
Northern Ireland is 6 counties. So what about
Yeah.
those 3 counties? Which country do
So
they
there's
belong to?
Northern Ireland. The the island of Ireland is split into 4 provinces:
Mm-hmm.
Leinster, Munster, Ulster, and Connacht. Each of which, Leinster has 12 counties, Munster has 6, Connacht has 5 or 6, and Ulster has 9.
Mm-hmm.
But then Northern Ireland is like a subset of Ulster. So all of Northern Ireland is in Ulster, but
Mm-hmm.
not all of Ulster is in Northern Ireland. So
Okay.
yeah, it there's like 3 counties which are just on the periphery. They're just
Yeah.
outside of Northern Ireland. So like those counties, like they're actually like the businesses there are just absolutely fucked because they can't control COVID numbers. They can't do local lockdowns or anything. They can't do anything because of the cross-border travel, and you can't shut down that border. It's just impossible. There's 157 border crossings across between the two of them, or is it more? Something like that. It's ridiculous. And they also then they're going to have the added uncertainty of Brexit. So I don't know. I just think I don't know, Max. I think the whole thing is fucked.
Well, I mean, it seems like the solution would be to unite, but with any change that's this big, it's just gonna take time, and like there's just too
Yeah.
many regulatory issues that would have to be sorted out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
don't.
I think I do think I do think it will happen. I just don't think it will for a number of years. I think it won't be for another couple of years anyway. It won't be for another few years. But
Well,
there'll
it's
be
like
so many unforeseen issues with it.
think about what's happening with Brexit. Like that's a change
Yes,
that
exactly.
whether you're for Brexit or against it, like you can see how difficult it is to actually execute it. And I think it will be the
Absolutely.
same.
And there's difficulties that people didn't foresee.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
there
That
was
that
a in Sweden they used to have they used to drive on the left side of the road and they switched to the right side, and they didn't foresee that they would have to change the bus stops. So on the day they
oh
changed, all the bus stops were still on the wrong side of the road.
so the buses just happen to cross over traffic.
Yeah,
Why the fuck
no one thought about
did
that
anyone
until the.
change?
Why would they change? I don't know, like for consistency.
Yeah, that's true. Well, what in the UK is UK is the same as the Republic, isn't it? You drive on the left hand
Yeah.
side. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Is it America is the right hand side of the road?
Everything is the right hand side, except the UK and Ireland and Australia. Like that's the only
All right,
exception.
so we're the
You're the
ones who are
weirdos.
different.
Yeah, you're the weirdos.
I'll accept that. Usually, I'm always saying, why the fuck do the Americans have to be different, not us? That's
Yeah.
fair. Oh, actually, Max, just to say something about actually, funnily enough, though, America. So I'm not passing judgment. I know I've often been very critical of American
Hmm.
institutions and corporate tyranny of power and stuff. Talking to you before, but one of my friends from here was telling me something about one of his American friend that I thought if you heard that you'd be like, what the fuck? So he has an American friend,
Hmm.
and he's been living in Ireland, and because he's now so disillusioned with his country that he has renounced his US citizenship.
Wow.
I was like, I actually said it to my friend Alex. I was like, do you know what? I wonder could someone purchase that off him? I have a friend who might want to purchase it.
I kind of
Yeah.
became like in the last few months, I guess, especially after talking to you, I kind of became more disillusioned with the US, especially after I saw the recent news stories and everything. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I still, like, it's still my favorite country, and I
It's
just look.
funny, after talking to you, I've kind of gone the opposite way in some ways.
Well, but you've never been there, right? In America.
No, I've never been, but I think I've become less. I think you opened my mind to how the biggest thing you opened my mind with regards to US is yes, it has its issues,
Mm.
but show me many systems that are actually better in terms of personal freedoms in
Hmm.
many cases. Do you know what I mean?
Well, what I'm
And I
worried
was
is America seems like historically America worked quite well because you had personal freedom, but you also had people who were willing to take responsibility and form communities and
yeah
do, like you talk about collectivism. In America, this collectivism comes from the person, right? It comes from the people. It
yeah
comes from,
it comes from that individual,
yeah,
like you said, that individualists are actually collectivists in many ways because they want to
yeah,
influence what is specifically around them, their
yeah,
community, their people that they engage with on a day-to-day basis.
the good
And that's
ones,
true.
yeah.
They always had that responsibility, and they had the incredible work ethic to build and cultivate these communities, these thriving communities. But unfortunately, that's just not the way the system is anymore. It's, you know,
Yeah.
it's just become much
What
more.
I'm worried about is that I'm really, really worried that this is kind of dying and that there's a new growing generation which doesn't share those principles.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and also the
That is
systems are corrupted. And, I'm especially worrying about like just people, a new generation that isn't raised on those principles. It's raised on a different set
that's
of
true. I
principles.
actually, you know what, I can completely understand that, to be quite honest with you. I genuinely can, because I do think that the there is a new generation, and not just ones like 20 and younger. Even I'd say the disillusionment goes further up into
Mm,
your mid 30s and 40s and stuff. That disillusionment and that estrangement from typical American values, coupled with the complete whatever, one thing nobody can dispute is that there is a pure corruption and,
mm-hmm,
economic corruption in America of its institutions. Um, I think that those two factors are definitely going to lead to a very different America, which is like my honest opinion. And I was saying this to a few of my friends that I would consider relatively well enlightened on the case, and they're not completely pig-headed, or completely just oblivious to some of the things that are going on. Reckon that America is going to a civil war, be
mm,
it implicit or explicit, but it's going to a civil war. And I don't, it could be long term, it could be short term, I don't know how, but there's both a culture war and an economic warfare going
mm-hmm.
on. And it's going on actively. It's huge. People of different, people on different sides of the coin. And you know what? It's not something that, even though I always had issues with America, and particularly more so than anything, the American Empire, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just with empire in general, but the American Empire, because it's the one for the last, whatever, 80, 90 years. I don't want to see the people in the country completely crumble, because there is a spirit and a spirituality in Americans that you don't find in many other
Mm-hmm.
places. And even like a lot of people might label, for instance, say Republicans as racist and conservative. Well, they are conservative, but
Yeah, they are
racist,
conservative.
or, bigots. And but that's not necessarily true. A lot of them are just actually quite spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? A lot of them are quite spiritual, and they have their fundamental beliefs in their family, their friends, their faith, their communities, and so on and so forth. And yes, of course, that there is certain, it's not necessarily progressive, but it's not a reason for anyone to completely victimize, or sorry, not victimize, vilify them. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? They're still just people with values that, whilst they might not be your own progressive, I use progressive in inverted commas, because a lot
Yeah,
of the radical left progressive ideas that are being purported at the moment are not progressive. But
yeah, they're not very
I don't
progressive.
like the vilification of those people, because I'd say a lot of them are actually good people.
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
and that's coming from me. I'm an admitted left wing guy. I'm quite progressive. I'm quite
mm-hmm.
libertarian. I'm quite anarchistic in many ways, but I still don't think it's right to vilify those people.
Well, it's if you think that all conservatives are racist, you're basically thinking 50% of the population is racist, and then that kind
Yeah.
of sets up the stage for a civil war, really. I mean, if you're gonna,
And that's what's happening.
yeah,
That's what's that is, it is that is what's happening. There's huge militia groups, left wing militia
mm-hmm,
groups, that are forming at the moment. And you see, what's funny is, the other way, like the left in America are dominating the social agenda. So the social liberals and the political wokeism, so to speak,
mm-hmm,
in America is becoming huge. But it's funny, it's really weird, because on the opposite side, I think economically it's becoming more right wing, in that it's becoming less egalitarian.
mm,
So it's such a strange dynamic that I can't. It's hard to put your finger on it, because businesses are becoming more powerful. They're
mm-hmm,
amalgamating more power, and the discrepancy, the
yeah,
inequality is rising tremendously. That
mm-hmm.
it's funny how socially everything is seemingly becoming more left wing, but yet economically it's becoming more right wing. It's an interesting analysis, and it's something that's it's not often kind of picked up on, in social media or anything like that. or not even in social media, in kind of in any mainstream media.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, income. I've been
It
thinking
is
about
ridiculous.
income inequality a lot lately. Because imagine you're a small business. Let's say you sell,
Mm-hmm.
don't know, you sell packaging materials. So,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say you were a business selling packaging materials in the 1950s. So maybe there were five of you in the town, and let's say you were very good. So people kind of came to you as opposed to the other four businesses. So maybe you got like 80% of customers. So now, let's say a typical packaging business makes like you know, 100,000 a year or something, just made up number. So because you're so good, you would get like 500,000 a year, right? So you would get
Okay.
a lot more money. But now, in 2020, if you're very good, you there's you can go on the internet, and then it's no longer five businesses in town. Now it's 5,000 businesses in town because you can go on eBay, and if you're a business, you have to
Mm-hmm.
compete with everyone. So that
Yeah,
means
competition is intensified tremendously.
the business that's the most successful, let's say you're better than the other 4,999 businesses. You're gonna be so good.
Amazon, Google, those kind of ones. Yeah.
You're gonna be so good that you're gonna grow so big that you're gonna basically oppress everyone else. You're gonna have so much money that it's just gonna knock everyone out of the game. So I've
That's true. That actually makes sense. That makes sense, Max. That because they think because it's become so we've become so economically prosperous, and there's become we're no longer we're competing on such a globalized international level that inevitably there was always bigger companies or more successful companies
mhm,
or ones who did better things to make more money. It's now just the case that the ones that are doing so well, because it's so globalized and because we're so interconnected, that they've literally become so big. But and invariably they're, by them being successful, it's going to oppress others. But there's just,
mhm.
I suppose,
Well, so what I want to talk
that.
about is speaking about income inequality. Like that's a huge
Oh, sorry.
factor.
Yes.
That's a huge factor driving income inequality. And then, how do you? There's like almost no way to deal with that because you're not gonna go back to like pre-internet times. So,
No, and that is it is a huge factor. But I can hear like a fire brigade or an
yeah,
ambulance going past it.
or the
um,
police, in this neighborhood
or the police.
might be
That's
more
true.
likely. But anyway, so
Hide your vape. Like, do you think though? Do you think, Max, though, that whilst that is a factor, a big factor in those companies, right, being so successful, that they are, they are, what's the word, oppressing other
mhm,
companies, so to speak, for want of a better term. Um, do you think that, I don't know even what I'm trying to say here, because like there's a lot of workers who work for those companies, right?
mhm,
If there's no way, a lot of those workers who work for those companies are they themselves in the
mhm,
very low income struggling bracket, the ones who are
mhm.
worked to the absolute bone, particularly Amazon. They're the one that I have a
Yeah,
particular gripe with. They are worked to the absolute bone and with fuck all fucking remuneration or pay in return.
yeah,
And some of the policies that are being implemented in some of these companies, these companies have become so big that, let's call a spade a spade. There's not much of a this distinguishment between those companies and the state anymore. There's just not.
yeah. That's
There's
what
a
I was driving at. So I was actually gonna say, so when the founding fathers set up America, one of the main objectives of the Constitution was the recognition that the government can become so powerful that it starts to oppress people. And then,
Yep,
so they set up the Constitution in a way that limited the government's power. But then
yep.
they didn't foresee that private corporations could become so powerful because there were no private corporations. Like, uh, like maybe like
That's true.
you
Actually,
know what I mean.
that's true.
So
Yeah, that's true,
America
because like the
America has
go
very
on.
good legal provisions for keeping the government in check. Like there's the balance of powers, there's judges, and there's the president, and there's the Constitution, the First Amendment, everything. But it doesn't have any provisions for keeping corporations in check, right?
That is true, because
Because that
America is so individualized, and
because
they
that
believe they have so their values are so.
because
Go on, sorry.
that didn't exist back then. Nothing like that
But then
existed
doesn't
back
that
then.
just go? Does that not go to show, Max, that they need a few more? Like, American Constitution is great, but maybe they need a few more amendments.
Maybe. I mean, maybe, like,
Not that either of us are legal scholars, but you know what I mean. Like maybe they need a few more amendments for the
yeah.
curtailment of private, because it's becoming an oligarchy.
Mm-hmm.
It is becoming someone. There was a guy called Chris Hedges who's a really good. He's one of my favorite journalists. Now, he does have his own left wing agenda. Absolutely, he used to work for the New York Times. He
Mm-hmm.
used to work on, say, in international kind of war zones for years and years, and he's kind of been marginalized by mainstream society, not mainstream society, so mainstream media,
Mm-hmm.
for years now, but he's still very articulate and very informative. And he said, it's funny, basically, the US election at the moment, you have a choice between two cheeks of the same arse.
Mm-hmm.
So he
Yeah.
said between Joe Biden or Donald Trump. He said, you can vote for Donald Trump and consolidate oligarchic power, or you can vote for Joe Biden and consolidate oligarchic power. It's just they say different things, but they're going to
Mm-hmm.
have the same. But the way of life is going to be the same. And it's very true.
Well, I don't really even want to go into like Joe Biden. Joe Biden kind of pisses me off, but
Joe Biden pisses me off a lot.
you know why? Because like he seems so nice. Like the persona of Joe Biden is like a nice old guy. Like Trump. Trump is this like he just wants to do bad things to you. I'm this like nice
Yeah,
older
he just
guy.
wants to watch the world burn, and Joe
Yeah,
Biden
yeah,
is
yeah.
the holy grail of American democracy, of American wholesome
Yeah.
values of diversity and inclusion. It's a low. He was the one who, when he's the one who's had the political career of 50 years, in which case he has done more damage to black
Mm-hmm.
communities. He's the one who signed off. He was the one who introduced the bill under Bill Clinton, which brought the three strikes and you're out rule. Three
Yeah.
strikes,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get no parole. And he
Yeah.
was the one who, like,
That's crazy.
he's been involved
That's
in so many
crazy.
writing of policies which are anti-black. Isn't it mad though how much there's just such a collective narrative that becomes engulfed, that
Mm-hmm.
people buy into it, and just the vast majority of people will buy into what the shit that's being shoveled down their fucking throat. Like, Joe Biden is literally and now I am not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I am
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not a Joe Biden supporter either. By any stretch of means. I do think America probably in the next election, the next one, will probably have not necessarily a third candidate be successful, but a third candidate have gained quite a lot of momentum. There'll be a
Kanye
third
West.
candidate. There'll have to be.
Kanye West.
No. They won't be celebrity based. I don't. I
I
fucking
I
hope
know
not.
I know someone who claims he talked to Kanye and he talked to people around Kanye and he knew
All
Kanye
right,
was gonna run for president because he talked to him.
really.
Yeah, and he supports him and he thinks he's the best
Imagine he was
candidate.
just there like smoking weed with Kanye West, and Kanye's just like, "I'm gonna run for president, man," and he's like, "Nah, no, you're
does
not.
does
Just shut up, man, would you?"
does Kanye smoke weed?
Yeah.
I don't think he does.
I actually no. He's bipolar, so I really hope he doesn't.
Mm.
I hope he doesn't. That's if you're bipolar, smoking weed can be really bad for you. What you call it? I don't know. I to be honest, it's funny. I think, like, I do think, unfortunately, I think there's a lot of the hardships in America are only beginning in many ways.
Yeah,
I
that's what I'm worried
unfortunately,
about. Like I'm really
Mm.
on a personal level, because like the respect I have,
Yeah, because
like
you
it's
love American,
because
you
I want
love
to live
those
there.
West,
Like I literally want to
yeah,
live
and you
there.
love those Western ideals.
And
You don't want to live in a country that's completely at war with itself.
yeah, I just don't want to live in a country where those ideals are lost. Like I don't want to live in a country that goes to shit. You know what I mean? Like just on a personal level, like
Yeah,
I don't want any part of that.
yeah. No, I get that.
Hmm.
I get that entire. I genuinely, I think like there's that's completely understandable. I think maybe if and when you're fortunate enough to move to America, that's you can be part of the a part of no, not part of the anti. Don't join a militia. That's all I'll ask. Don't join a militia, or don't start a cult. Um, what's called. But maybe you could get involved in trying to be a speaker for the traditional American values and try to use your sense of logic
Hmm.
and rationale and reason to appeal to a small cohort of people, build up your base, so to speak. So say in terms of influencing people.
Hmm.
So you're very like you're obviously extremely logical, you're extremely rational, but and you're probably becoming more and more articulate of your ideas.
Hmm.
So if you were able to reach through things like this or whatever, if you were able to reach more um not necessarily like-minded people, but people who also share a similar worry about
Hmm.
the degrading of the American principles. And if you can show them why they are such good principles in principle, but how they've kind of been taken out of context in many ways, and they've been
Hmm.
taken out of, there's a new generation growing up without them. Be using all your sources that you can, Nietzsche, Jordan Peterson, whoever, whatever will help to
Hmm.
use your message. I think that'd be a positive thing to do. Just don't start a cult though, Max. Don't start a cult. I've actually off topic for a moment, if I don't mind.
Okay.
Jim Jones.
The guy who had that cold, he made people like drink some poison or something in South
Yeah,
America.
yeah, he got
Yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so he got him like that's where the phrase. There's a phrase like "Don't drink the Kool-Aid." It
yeah,
means like
yeah,
don't swallow the
yeah, yeah.
propaganda.
Mm,
So he got like 850 of them to do it in Jonestown. But he was around for 20, 30 years.
mm,
So there's this podcast, the guy that I follow on Twitter, Ewan McKenna, an Irish journalist, and he shared this podcast series. There's like a thing called, if you Google Radio Jonestown, and they
mm,
have 10 1-hour podcasts with this narrator who was the researcher of it. That mixed with, say, original footage of him preaching to people in the fucking
mm,
like in the choirs and stuff. So it's all like 1960s radio footage, but you hear him and you hear how he like the incredible way he used to like fucking he'd speak to a crowded audience like, and he's like,
mm.
I'm watching you, I see you in the back not watching me. And like it was just it's nuts, like the mind control tricks they used to do. Like he was in Brazil. There's a lot of credible evidence apparently that he was involved with the CIA
Mm.
whilst he was down in Brazil. But it's just fucked up. I've always been fascinated by the Jonestown massacre. He was a strange child, as I'm sure you can imagine. He was a
Mhm.
very strange child. He's always had, but he had like weird. He had incredible oratory speaking, and oratory skills.
Mhm.
Um, but and he was extreme left wing. If you think modern day left wing people are radical, this fellow was like full communist. Like he was trying to get him from the growing decay of society, and most of them were poor black people from
Mm.
impoverished, say, new people who've moved from the deep south after the civil rights movement up to the northern cities and stuff in America. And like people followed him. I thought he was only like a quick term like fad for like,
Mm.
it all happened in a couple of years, because nowadays that kind of thing would only happen so rapidly because information travels so quickly. But sure, he was around. He was an ordained church minister in Indiana from like 1950, and it didn't happen till like 1978 or
Mm.
77. Like
Well, I
he was around.
imagine
He was on
it
the CIA's radar
takes
for like,
years to build a following. So,
it's crazy, man. And then like they force fed the Kool-Aid down people. But if you're ever wanting to, it's dark. It is
what
dark. So
happened
don't
to
listen
him?
to it before
What
going to
what
bed.
happened to him? To him, did they kill
In the
himself?
end, he shot himself. He shot himself.
But there's
I
some
think
like
I haven't
conspiracy
listened to all the
theory.
podcasts.
There's some conspiracy theory that he didn't actually shoot himself. That it was like the CIA
Maybe there
that
is. I
killed
haven't.
him. After all,
But you know what? It wouldn't surprise me because the CIA have been in some
yeah,
nasty shit. I'm convinced that CIA had a big part to do with 9/11. I am. I
really.
am. Call me a tinfoil hat conspiracy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
Genuinely, it's probably a bit late. It's probably a bit late in the evening to go into to 9/11. We should. I would definitely do it. We should do this more often, though, Max. In terms of
hmm.
more podcasts.
Oh, I think.
How?
Well, first of all, I think you're
Go
gonna
on.
be a,
Sorry.
I think you're gonna be a regular. I think people are gonna like you. The the three
Okay.
listeners that are listening to this, I think that also like this has been longer than any other episode before. Like
Is there three people listening?
I don't know how many. This is just a random
All
number,
right.
but
How? What way are you actually sharing them?
it's on YouTube and it's on Spotify and it's on iTunes, and
You must send me a link to it because I might show one or two of my friends. I might show it to a few of my friends.
yeah. See, there's a couple episodes. I did an episode with a guy called Devin Byrne. Uh,
Okay.
he's a modern day mystic, so
Okay.
he's a strange guy. He's a modern day mystic, so he's
Oh, I remember you telling me about that. I
yeah,
remember you
yeah,
telling me about that. He's from America, no?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just fascinated because like you can induce mystical experiences by giving people um, LSD, mushrooms, DMT, and so on. But there are people who have those experiences just natural, and
Yeah.
he seems to be one of them.
He's capable. And is he like he's did he have to learn the skill of how to induce those experiences?
Well, apparently he had inclinations for it since early childhood. Like,
Oh,
like he would be inclined to like chant, repeat phrases like in his mind, kind of like meditation. Meditation, you kind of focusing on the breath. He would like focus on, repeating certain mantras. Like that would just come naturally to him. He didn't like learn that from anywhere. He just was doing that in the same way, like,
okay. So he had like a natural
yeah,
disposition for
yeah.
it.
But he also learned a lot from, reading like the Tao Te Ching and a course of miracles. That's another like a spiritual text from the 20th century. So, um, and he
Has I'm
claimed
sorry, has he been on it
on what?
on your podcast?
Yeah, he's been on the podcast and actually I'm
Okay.
doing a course, a Udemy course with him on the Tao Te
Oh,
Ching,
what?
a Udemy course. Udemy, the platform,
No,
the online course platform.
no.
So it's like a people sell courses and stuff on it. So
Okay.
we're making a course where we're gonna have, it's basically him talking about the every version of the Tao Te Ching, and I'm just like asking questions and challenging
Interesting.
him. Yeah, yeah.
When are you doing that?
Oh, we've already recorded like 5 episodes,
Oh,
so
very good.
it's
Very
gonna
good.
it's good
Will
it's
you do?
gonna.
You must. Sorry, is this being live streamed? This podcast, or do you have to like edit it and then upload it?
Well, there's not much editing to be done, so
No, it does
hopefully,
not.
it's gonna go online on Monday, just
Okay.
because I
Send
tested
send
them on
send
Monday.
send 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 me the link then when it does.
Okay, I'll definitely send you a link.
Do and I'd happily go on more podcasts as well. Even if you want, we could have specific topics that we could discuss either beforehand either. I really don't mind because one of my friends is on about this doing a podcast with me, but a very very different podcast. He wants to talk about Irish sport, Irish
Okay.
GA sport. So that's he wants to start a sports podcast with me because we have big arguments about Irish sport and the GAA. It's hurling and football. Never mind you, me and you. That's one thing we'll never have a mutual interest in sport.
Yeah,
My my sport is like you and technology.
when you said your friend was going to do a podcast, in my mind I was like, oh, I should get him on my podcast, and then you said sports, and I was like, okay, never mind.
Nope, not happening. Come here. I'm probably gonna have to let you go because there's the Ireland game. Actually, the Ireland football game. In fairness, there was a big match on tonight, and I've kind of been only half watching beside me, but it's going to penalties. So I'm
Okay.
probably going to watch that. It's been good chatting with you.
All right. Thank you, John. Thanks,
No worries.
everyone.
Have a nice evening, Max.
Have a nice
Bye
evening.
bye.
I'll see you
Bye
later.
bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.